All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a good weekend here, and thanks so much for stopping by. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. So like all the other usual live streams here on Sundays, we'll go for about 2 hours or so. I give priority answering, then who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And let me see here. So I see we have a bunch of people that have already showed up. Thanks so much, Fazlin, Vishal, Danny, and let me see, Lanswath, and Mr. 705, Raphael, and Kevin, Felix, Luke, and Tony. And Will from San Diego and Lantern Tales. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. And I see Fazlin says, "Hi, Matt. I passed my driver's test. Congrats. That's awesome. Good job." He says, "I've also seen a lot of GR Corollas and spotted some cool C8s this week." Awesome. That's awesome. And man, so I hope you're enjoying driving out on your own if you've started to do that here. And congrats. That's so exciting. I'm happy for you. And enjoy the freedom that brings and the oh man, that was one of the greatest days of my life, getting my driver's license. Just so exciting. So I hope you're on cloud 9 and have a great time with it. Vishal says, "Hello, my spots are a Ford Festiva, Cadillac XLR, Gen 1 Pilot wrapped in black camo, and a Dodge Neon SRT4. Wow, an unmolested SRT4. Didn't think there were any left." I didn't think there were either. I honestly God, I've not seen an SRT4, even like a crappy one. I haven't seen a crappy one even in like probably 4 or 5 years. Yeah, that's impressive. That's honestly, I mean, the others are cool too, but I mean, man, the tuner in me, yeah, I'd love to review an SRT4 someday. Never had an opportunity. So that's awesome. You saw that. My fun little spot, I saw a Z06, did a nice little flyby. I got to hear some exhaust sounds there a couple of days ago, so that was fun. And Danny says, "Hello, he drove yesterday and today and 3 days until he turns 18. Well, happy early birthday, Danny. And I guess, so let me see. So 3 days will be Monday, Tuesday. So would it be actually Wednesday? Or maybe for the live on Wednesday, it'll be your actual birthday there. But either way, I hope you have a great birthday. He says his rare spot is a 95 BMW 318 IS Coupe. Very nice. Yeah, that's the other one. I still keep seeing someone with like the late 80s BMW 6 Series coupe in white. Someone just drives around like a regular car, and they must have just picked it up in the past several months, because I first spotted it in the middle of a wintry storm, amazingly, a few months back. And then I see it all the time now. I just drive around as a daily driver, which is awesome. Oh, also another funny thing. So our neighborhood's like really big and it's very spread out. So it's not like an actual neighbor, but someone in the pretty close area to us here. They used to have a green, like a lime green Macan Turbo, and it seems just traded in because we were just driving through and saw they were backing in an Audi RS6 Avant in red. And I was like, nice. Someone within the vicinity has an RS6 Avant, so now I'll hopefully see an RS6 Avant on a regular basis. So that they have excellent taste, I have to say, too, trading up from the Macan Turbo there to the RS6 Avant. So that's another fun one. I'm happy to see myself this week. And Danny says, also, he got so mad today while driving the Bolt. I was accelerating up to the speed limit of 35, and the Bolt's digital speedometer said 30, which I believed. Then this 11th gen SI with an idiot guy and his female Doji, I don't know what that, or Dougie girlfriend whips around and floors it because I'm not accelerating fast enough for him. I beeped him, and both of them gave me the bird. Have an overinflated ego. Yeah, also, what you might be seeing a little bit, because Beth every once in a while encounters this, is just EV hate. There's been a couple of times where, she's had random people, especially it was more in the Mach-E. I don't think she's had it much in the Lyric yet. Maybe some people haven't figured out it's electric. I don't know. But in the Mach-E especially, she had multiple like people in lifted trucks flip her off and stuff like that. Like just her minding her own business in the right lane, like not bothering anybody, and just people being jerks. So especially being in the Bolt, there's a chance that there's some of that as well, because of course EVs have been politicized and all that stupid stuff, as many of you saw. If you saw the crap show that I'm trying to censor myself, that the comments were here this week for the Honda dropping all their EVs. And I made the mistake of, I've been starting to post more videos on Facebook, and I was like, yeah, I'll post that one on Facebook because I knew it was going to be controversial, and I should have just turned off comments, because it immediately turned into a complete just clown show on there. But so anyway, long story short, if you get some irrational hate sometimes, Danny, in the Bolt, there may be some of that, especially if you're doing nothing wrong driving wise. It might just be people just don't like you because they know it's electric, and just kind of keep that in the back of your head so it doesn't make it as personal sometimes, hopefully, for you. And Michelle says the joys of driving right. We gotta drive in DFW sometime. You gotta drive in DFW sometime. Absolute worst drivers I've seen anywhere. Yeah, Northern Virginia drivers are always the ones that like drive me crazy. It's just between the crazy traffic, the crazy drivers, and the cops that throw you in jail for doing more than like 10 over the speed limit. It's Northern Virginia is definitely the worst spot for me. DFW I've driven through. It's been a long time, but wasn't terrible. But I'm sure there's no limit to how things could have changed. I'm sure there's lots of places like that I think used to be nice to drive in and have since gone downhill. And let me see here. Danny says also, it's the worst part. The guy thought he was cool because he had the 11th Gen SI with modded exhaust. I like to say it sounded like a literal ugly fart can. Yeah, it depends on the exhaust you get, because for the 11th Gen, yeah, you got to get the right exhaust, because some of them just don't sound great. And Danny says, I'd recommend watching the YouTube for bad drivers in New Jersey. The channel is Dashcam Out East. Interesting. Yeah, I wish I still did more driving so I could have kept up with doing the stuff I saw last month videos, because those were my fun Dashcam compilations. But I just don't drive enough, unfortunately. But if that ever changes, I'm gonna start doing those videos again, because or maybe if I just start seeing more crazy driving, I'll do them for that reason alone, because usually there's just not enough stuff there to post up. And Danny says the guy drives his family around sometimes in his brand new, now 7-month-old 2025 Odyssey. Oh, interesting, for the dash cam stuff. That's cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'm sure it's entertaining. And Lancelot says, good evening. I hope all is well with you. My spot this week was a 2nd Gen Raptor customized by Raj Performance. That's cool. And also, Lancelot, I see also, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. Sorry, I missed it a few minutes ago, but I really appreciate the support there, Lancelot. And on the topic of memberships, also there's a few of you that will be crossing the 4-year mark here for being a member this month. And I just posted a new member badge here for those 4-year members. So if you are one of those, keep an eye out for the new badge. And I took some of the suggestion. Someone was like, either do like red for the Fiat or the dark green for the Bullet. And the green just on its own didn't seem special enough. So what I ended up doing for the 4-year badge is I was thinking of like higher tiers and like higher status kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh, like, because I fly Delta and they have diamond as like the best status. So I decided to do a diamond like emoji like as a large thing, and then have like the 4+ year kind of thing. So everyone knows it's that's been a long time of support and has the diamond thing. So it's very clear that that's the top thing. But I also still kept the green, so it's still got the dark green kind of theme there, but with the diamond. So hopefully you guys enjoy the new design as you start to see it a little bit. I think so far Kyle and a few others, I think Raphael is going to be getting it soon. I was just looking at the member list the other day. So start to see those show up here in the chat here soon, I'm sure. But anyway, I just want to let you guys know that that's what I ended up going with. And thank you for the recommendations there as far as which direction to go with that. And also, Lancelot, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, we love you all here, Matt. Ignore the haters. And I very much appreciate all of your support and the community we have here on YouTube. I think also, like, now that I've been posting a little more on Facebook, which it's totally inorganic, and I've already ranted about that, I think, in the past few weeks. It's not like a real number. Like the way it pushes it is so artificial with the videos. Like they get like way more views, but it's like it's completely fake. But anyway, I very much appreciate the community we have here on YouTube because it's like we can actually have intelligent conversations. We can, have respectful conversations. And we all learn things. I learned so much through chatting with you guys on here, and it's an actual constructive, positive experience. And so much of the internet, even on YouTube, generally, isn't like that. So I very much appreciate all of you. I know there's not many of us here, but the 44 currently in here hanging, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you all more than ever. And let me see. Where were we here? And Danny also says with the Dash Came Out East guy, his Odyssey's horn sometimes has a voice crack, like as a teenager going through puberty. Interesting. I've never encountered a horn that had like a crack or a cutout in the sound or something. I wonder if he's got like a weird short or like a grounding issue with his horn or something. That's interesting. Let me see. Also, Mr. 705 says, what do you think of the 2026 RAV4? I have a 21 CRV. I'm thinking of possibly trading it in on one. I love the new RAV4. So I reviewed the XSE, the Woodland, and the GR Sport. The GR Sport was the plug-in hybrid one. And I really like the new RAV4. I think especially with some of the other ones that I really like kind of being iffy now, like the Tiguan Turbo I really enjoyed, but like that seems like they're having some kind of turbo issue because people are having them blow up left and right, which isn't normal. Volkswagens have some issues down the road, but they don't blow up in the first 1,000 miles typically. So there's clearly something going on with the production of those currently. So that one I can't really recommend until they sort it out, but it's really good once they do eventually sort it out. But right now, I think RAV4 is still like the safest bet, and I think that's what I love about it. But now it doesn't have to be like, well, you're sacrificing features, and you're getting something old. Now it's like it's fresh, it's modern, just enough. It's still the same great dimensions everyone likes. It's just you got better tech, but also like now we saw the new CX-5, which went too far on tech. We have an actual volume knob. They did this screen very well, and it's not overboard, but it's enough to keep up with the times for people who are, buying purchases, decision purchases. I'm jumbled here. Decision making, buying decisions. Phew. I need more coffee. Buying decisions based on screen size is what I was trying to say. It keeps up with all that stuff. But I mean, I didn't do a video about it. Maybe I should have, because I saw Motormouth did a ton of views on their video about it, about how they dropped the price of the plug-in hybrids for the RAV4. I don't know if you're talking about, regular hybrid for your potential purchase, Mr. 705, or plug-in hybrid. But the plug-in hybrid, I mean, they really, like you can get the fully loaded GR Sport version, even like 51 grand. And I think RAV4 Prime, the plug-in hybrid was what they called it at the end there, that was like 55, I think, fully loaded. And the GR Sport has more stuff and more power, and it's a bigger battery pack. And then again, you go for the lower ones, it's even cheaper. I think a plug-in hybrid is a phenomenal value right now. Again, we'll see how long all this gas stuff lasts, but it doesn't seem like gas prices are going to get, cheap for a while. I would probably lean towards the plug-in hybrid right now because of how well they priced it. Now, if it was a sky-high price, but you just go for a regular hybrid probably, unless you really want that electric experience. But if you can plug in at home or at work, RAV4 Prime, or I'm going to say that forever, the RAV4 plug-in hybrids are going to be the way to go, I think, because they're so well priced. But I think also Canada, I believe you said you're in Canada, number 705. They still have, I think, some incentives. I don't know if it's only EVs or plug-in hybrids. You might be able to get some extra money off there too. But yeah, regular hybrid is still fantastic. Really well done. I really like the Toyota hybrid system. It's just really well done. I think RAV4s are great. I think it's going to continue to, maintain its dominance in the market. And it's an easy one to recommend for sure. I'm hoping to spend more time with one because I only was on the first drive. I've been asking for one ever since I got back from that, which I think was in October or November. But I don't know if they're just prioritizing, customer shipments or what, but they have them in a couple of the media fleets, but there's nothing here on the East Coast. So still waiting on a reference. I was like, I don't even care what you give me. You can give me any of the trims, doesn't matter. Like I just want to get into a RAV4 again to spend a week with one. So I'm hoping to have that, but right now, I don't know how soon you're planning on buying Mr. 705, but I won't have one for a week for probably, it'll be at least May at this point. Because I'm kind of in a spot right now where I don't have any press cars and I won't have any probably till the end of April. So been daily driving the little Fiat, and using that as my actual like regular car. It's kind of fun to to not have press cars sometimes, so I can actually enjoy the Fiat and act like a regular person that just has one car and sticks with it for a little while. But anyway, so hopefully it helps you a little bit. Let me know though, Mr. 705, if you have any specific follow-up questions, especially if you've watched the videos already or if you haven't or after you watch them. If there's any other questions, more than happy to chat with you more about it if there's anything in particular that can help you. And let me see. Danny says, yeah, he needed to get that rant out of his brain. All good. It's very therapeutic to get stuff off your chest, I know. Michelle says, Car Confections bought a new 26 RAV4 XLE as the Camry replacement. Glad they got the volume selling trim to be realistic for people. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think they know that that's where it's at. Especially, you see some of the reviews that they do from car dealerships, and it is sometimes, those more mainstream trims. But yeah, especially these days, that's a very smart move because, again, people are more crunched than ever for money. And I think the XLE is going to be far more popular than it was in the past even. And I hope the Toyota stocks appropriately for that because, yeah. And also, all these brand new vehicles have such high standard feature content that there's less of a reason to go for higher trims than there was in the past. So I think that, yeah, it's going to be the way to go. So I'm glad they did that. And, let me see. Luke says he missed last Wednesday. Work's been extremely busy. I totally get it. All good. And happy to see you here tonight, Luke. And let me see. He also says he was delivering in Long Island on Thursday, and he counted 8 different Fisker Oceans throughout the day. And I solved a car hauler full of Fisker. Saw a car hauler full of Fisker Oceans. No idea who's buying these. So the Fisker Ocean, the deal with those is that the rest of the remaining inventory, whenever they liquidated, with the whole bankruptcy proceedings or whatever, they liquidated to a fleet operator in New York City. So they are being used as taxis and as, fleet vehicles. I don't know. I think they said they paid something like maybe 15 or 18 grand for them each, but they, obviously bought, I don't know, a couple thousand of them or whatever they did. And maybe some of them will be set aside to be parts cars and stuff because you're going to need that because there's not going to be any support for them. But that's why you saw those in Long Island. That's going to be the only place on planet Earth you'll probably see Fiskers, especially after the first few years, because everyone else will probably have them, crap out, the few who bought them in California and stuff. So, but that is why you're seeing them in Long Island. I think if you Google Fisker Ocean New York fleet or something like that, I think it was Jalopnik or someone wrote a story on the company that's doing this, and I think there was a little bit of an interview with the management as far as that whole deal went down and how that all played out. So, definitely interesting to look into that if you're curious. Yeah, Danny says 18 on Wednesday. This is his golden birthday. Turned 18 on the 18th. That's fun. Yeah, that's awesome. Hope it's a great one, though. And if you can make it on Wednesday, I'm sure you'll have better things to do. But if you stop by, I'm more than happy to say happy birthday once again here. But let me see. Where are we here? Lance Foss says he was born a few months before Jaws came out in 1975. Nice. Awesome. You probably, I'm often jealous of older generations. I was just talking to Beth last night, how even like we grew up, as 90s kids, and how that was really like the last decade that wasn't tainted by the internet really. The early 2000s too, it wasn't, a major influence. I think once Facebook really started to, take off and stuff, 2008, 2009 is when, things kind of really started going to the dogs a little bit. But, it's like, but especially, the further back you go, the more you had that time period of, not being in a 24-hour news cycle, not, having social media bombard stuff down your throat and just all these, things we have in modern times that just kill or try to kill your happiness, so yeah, being born in 75, you went through the fun of all the 80s and teenager in the 90s and stuff. It must have been really fun. So that's cool. And let me see. Danny says he's going to be having some cake and celebrating. That's awesome. Let me see. Tony says his cool spots were an early 2000s Cadillac STS and a first-gen LS 400. Very nice. Cool spots. STSs I don't see too often around here either anymore. I don't know about you guys, but Michelle says he was born in 2000. I was 8 years old in 2008. Nice. Let me see. Lantern Tail says maybe the Fiat showed its Italian reliability as Matt is late today. Yeah, sorry, I was a little bit late there. Fiat's doing great though. The only little thing that's popped up recently is it's unfortunate that I couldn't include this in the video because it was a few weeks after I got a notification on the gauge cluster. It said service vehicle or whatever, but it wasn't a like something's wrong servicing. It's just that the car is on a timer, and apparently it's every 2 years. It just like wants you to bring it in to like have them clear the code or whatever, and just like check the car. So they kind of just mandate a service for nothing, which I don't love. Especially some people say the Fiat dealer just clears it for free for you. Others say no, like they charge you like $150 for the annual thing or whatever it is. But it's actually kind of funny because like the Fiat, I guess the dealer that sold it to me should have reset it whenever they sold it to me, but it was on a 2-year timer, and that car had been sitting for an entire year before I bought it. So even though I've only had it for a year, it's still an actual 2-year-old car. It's been sitting there, for 2 years total. And so that's why that little timer went off. So I've been driving around with a little yellow wrench, very Fiat kind of ownership experience probably, but I've been driving around with a little yellow wrench because I'm due for PA. We have state inspections. That's due in April. So instead of doing 2 trips to the dealer, I'm just gonna be like, you know what? I'm just gonna, I usually don't go to the dealer for a state inspection, but I'm like, I'm just gonna have them do it there. And hopefully if I'm paying them for the state inspection, I'm like, oh, also, can you just reset that little timer for me and see if I can get that for free? Because I don't want to pay $150 for nothing. So we'll see what happens. So the Fiat's been telling me service the vehicle, but I know nothing's wrong. So that's good. But yeah, it's been super reliable. I really love that little thing so much. It's so fun to zip around in. And Luke says he also saw an Alfa Romeo Stelvio limo. Really? That's surprising that someone did that. I also would question the safety of a limo version of the Stelvio because the Giorgio platform the Stelvio is on isn't the strongest of platforms. And this is also part of the reason way back when, little anecdote, they were trying to find ways to, this is part of, I think, the reason why we don't have any kind of crazy V8 in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, because that's also in Giorgio. But they had initially wanted to put, what was it they were going to do? Something that was on the Giorgio platform. I can't remember. It was like they were going to use like a lot of the Giulia stuff, but it was going to be something within Dodge that they wanted to try and do, but they wanted to put a V8 in it, and then just like it ended up twisting the chassis, and they couldn't. Like Giorgio, you can't really do, at least for the regular car and sedan stuff, you couldn't put a V8 in it because it just wasn't strong enough of a chassis for that. So stretching it and making it a limo, obviously they do some reinforcements, but not the platform I would pick as a strong frame to build upon for a limo. That's interesting. Wow. That would, if you ever see that again, Luke, please try and safely get a picture if you can, because I feel like that would blow up on the internet. Honestly, and that would be yeah, because I don't think anyone has imagined that would ever be a thing. So that'd be really fun to show off to the world. Danny says the 19 Traverse just rolled over 47,000 miles recently. Crazy, we put that low miles on that in the 7 years we've owned it. Nice, yeah, nice easy life for that one. And Fazlin says, oh Matt, I saw you post on your story about you drifting the Durango Hellcat. Matt, I want that review. Yeah, so I wasn't actually me drifting. It was actually Chris Amos, the Topher from Winding Road and the Topher channel. He was the one who who was doing that drifting and that. I just did the same kind of drifting in the Charger that day, but I'm always so busy filming all the other stuff I got to film while I'm on a media trip that I just like do those things quickly and check the box and then go on to the next thing. So they had, like, I did it in the Charger RT. They had scat packs, they had the electric one, they had the Durangos there. You could play around all day at the snow thing if you got nothing better to do. And a lot of these journalists that do writing, especially, they have nothing else to do, so they just go and fart around for the afternoon and do whatever, versus me, I'm like trying to get every shot I need and everything. But anyway, so that's why, yeah, I would love to spend more time with the Durango Hellcat and play around with it, but just didn't have the time for that. They may have it in the press fleet though at some point, and if they do, I'll take it. I'm more interested in doing the volume one though, that's affordable for people. So I'm trying to get one of the cheaper Durangos to review, but if they send a Hellcat, I'm not going to say no to it. So we'll see if that happens. But again, you always go back and watch my old Durango Hellcat reviews if you want to see me have a good time in a Durango Hellcat. But Lantern Tail says, I saw Caterham 7 today at a meet. The dude drove it through snow and rain. Wow, that's impressive. That's awesome. Mr. 705 says, getting my driver's license was life-changing in high school. I had a 97 Ranger and would go for long drives after school. It was a great feeling. Yeah, driving is so therapeutic. I kind of miss it because I used to do some more night drives. Even if it was just running errands and stuff, I used to run just more errands just by myself in the evenings. And now I'm, just doing more work here at the computer instead. But yeah, those evening drives especially are so therapeutic. It was very nice to be able to kind of just clear your head and go for a drive back then. Let me see. Luke says, I was watching the TFL's Dodge Charger RT review. That was cool. They gave you a shout out. It was very nice. Yeah, Roman is a great guy. I've known him a long time, and yeah, I'm hoping we might be doing a little bit of a partnership here down the road. Yeah, I really, Roman's a great guy, and Tommy as well. I love them both. They're both fantastic. Yeah, I was really happy they were on the media drive. We were able to, have dinner together, the first night there, and they're the real deal. And it's very inspiring to see how much they've grown their channels, and me and Tommy, I think, are very much kind of kindred spirits as far as, old souls that love all the quirky classic stuff. And, they do all the really cool little features. I mean, Tommy's got the Model T and, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's always fun to chat with them. But, yeah, Roman's so nice. And he's even said in the past, if this channel doesn't seem like it's viable going forward, he's like, give me a call. Like he's really, because I talk about the struggles of the channel with a lot of the other reviewers and stuff, and Roman's like, you're a great reviewer, like don't give up, keep going. And he's really been one of the ones who's been very vocal about like don't give up, you got this, and like being just very, very supportive. So I know it's so nice that he gave me that shout out without needing to do that at all. It was very kind of him. So it's one of the great things about this job is so many wonderful people in it for sure. Go give them a follow if you guys don't. By the way, they're great. They totally deserve it. They do so many cool videos. Let me see. Darnell says, saw a unicorn, a 1990 Taurus show this week. That's pretty cool. Those are very, very rare. Especially these days. That's awesome. Thanks for stopping by too, Darnell. And Michelle says, I know you made the video already, but Honda canceling the EVs altogether is a bold move. To be honest, though, I think the Acura version getting canceled is the bigger blow with the RDX going away for a couple of years. I know. I said it's still wild, what Honda has done with Acura. Never seen such poor mismanagement of a premium brand. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I know. I mean, that's why, like I said at the beginning of that video, I mean, it was half joking, but like honestly, like I feel like Nissan is on a better trajectory than Honda is right now. Because Nissan's got a lot of great products coming out. They listen to feedback and like they're doing a new Xterra because everyone's asked for it and they know it's going to print money and they're doing it. Everyone's begging for a new Honda Element and this, that, and the other. And I mean, Honda does some good stuff. I think the Passport's a step in the right direction with the new Passport, and they sell a lot of cars still. I mean, CRV wildly popular, Accord wildly popular. They're so it's not like it's a sinking ship or anything, but like, yeah, it's just I don't know what Honda's doing. I mean, yeah, I already ranted in the video. So if you haven't seen that and you want to hear me go off for 10 or 15 minutes about Honda again, feel free to watch that. But yeah, it is crazy for sure. I mean, again, with the EV stuff, I can see both sides to it from, the argument for and against EVs and all this kind of stuff. I won't go on that whole tangent, but I think that, like you said, the Acura thing, it's like they're intentionally creating a gap in their lineup with the number one selling segment, for them, the RDX. Like that's the breadwinner. I think maybe MDX recently has outsold it because RDX is so stale, but like it's truly mind blowing that they just blew this giant hole in the middle of their lineup, and they have nothing until, and I mean, they didn't even commit on when new RDX is coming, by the way. Like, and I covered this in my video back in January about, the new RDX coming. I mean, we tried to press them on like, is this 2027 calendar year? Is this 2028 calendar year? Are we talking model? Because they were saying it's going to be a few years, and the consensus is 2028. But I mean, I hope that that's 2028 model year, but it sounds like it could even be 2028 calendar year. Because again, it seems like they completely got caught, just without a paddle here. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just like you said, it's mismanagement. Someone 3 years ago should have had red alerts going off all over Acura, being like, what's going on? Why is this happening? We need to have a backup plan. Like I said, previously, like even RDX, okay, it's stale, it's old, whatever. And they said that, we don't have the suppliers to keep it going. Find new suppliers, go to Magna Steyr and have them build it in Austria if you can't build it in your current factory, or, whatever. Like there are examples of, hard things that are really tough to do that still get done. I think that, like we saw this, I mean, even like G-Wagon, like, Mercedes is like, oh, how are we going to build G-Wagon way back in the day? And they're just like, well, we'll just have them build it in Austria. Same thing. I mean, honestly, the Fiskars are an example of this. The Fisker Ocean, it's this another mismanagement, just gigantic, crap show. But like, they didn't know where to build it, so they got Magna Steyr to build it. Magna Steyr is a contract builder. You tell them, hey, this is the car, build it. And, I mean, they obviously take a cut of that, and it's not as much of a profitable enterprise. But if all you're trying to do is not lose buyers, because that's the other thing too. Like, you can say, okay, well, you can upsell them into an MDX or downsell them into an ADX, but like, you're losing a lot of people who say, no, ADX is too small, MDX is too big, because everyone likes that sweet spot in that segment of kind of compact plus kind of sizing there. And once you lose people, I mean, brands brag about this all the time about how they have loyalty and repeat buyers, and they're building their brands and this, that, and the other. Like, you are just ruining all that with Acura, because they're all these people walk, and then once someone has left your brand and is now going to a competitor, it's way harder to get them back into your brand, because the other brand, their whole thing is set up to, give you loyalty bonuses for the next lease or purchase, or, they try and keep you in that family once you're in there. And so, then Acura's got to conquest these people all over again, that they already conquested, people that show up, that are going to be showing up for the next 3 years in an Acura showroom, or, be traded in their whatever, or, their lease is up on their old RDX. Hey, I'm here, I'm curious if you guys have, something new or whatever. People who are out of the loop, they're going to show up and be like, oh, you guys don't have anything for me. Huh. That's strange. Okay, bye. And then, they go to Lexus, they go to whoever. It's just, yeah. Honda's a big company too. Like, if we were talking about, Mitsubishi or someone who's, on the ragged edge, okay, whatever. It's just, I guess, the way it goes. But like, a company like Honda should not have ever gotten to this point. And it's just kind of wild. And like, you know, it's someone else, I think it was even maybe Mr. 705 or someone who mentioned in the comments for the Honda video, like, this is why Acura TLX got killed off. TLX got killed off to make room in that factory for RSX. So it's like, are we going to bring TLX back? Or because now we got this whole factory that's not going to have anything to do. Obviously, again, they'll put something there, but it's like, just you can tell again, this was a last minute thing because none of the dominoes line up. Like all these, you now have all this just debris field. You got to put these pieces together and try and make something of it. And it's just like you just have a giant mess on your hands that they created. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know much about the Honda and Acura leadership. You know, there's some people I know in the PR side of it that obviously are very nice people and obviously are not in charge of that kind of stuff. But man, I don't know. Yeah, it's really I can't wrap my head around it. And I'm not trying to be like, you know, an ignorant person is just like, oh, like, you know, I can be an armchair product planner and I have it all figured out. Like, I'm not saying I know better than Honda and Acura, but like, come on, like no one can argue that this was like the plan, like that this is intentional or like this is the way they wanted this to go. Like there's no, like mistakes were clearly made, as whether or not they ever, you know, admit to that, or, you know, Honda and Acura fans want to admit to that. Like, this is not ideal. And, you know, trying to pretend like it is just shows the fakeness, and I call out the fakeness. And so that was, yeah, you know, why I went ham in that video, for better or for worse. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to sit back with the popcorn and see what happens at Honda and Acura. But I feel bad. I mean, there's even someone in the comments who was like, yeah, I'm an Acura dealer. This really sucks. And I responded like, I'm so sorry, man. Like, this is like the you know, hard, hand of cards you've been dealt. It's just, man, I actually feel for Acura dealers. Honda dealers not so much because they're horrible with markups. Acura was a little guilty with Integra Type S, but man, now it's like, yeah, they got nothing really. I think, you know, Acura said there's going to be a refresh for MDX maybe later this year. Who knows if that's going to be anything actually significant, or if it's just going to be, you know, a new cubby in the middle or something and call it a day, because that's what they've been doing with refreshes recently. And Integra Type S is going to get the same little refresh that Type R is going to get for Civic. So, you know, unless there's other surprises up their sleeve, it just seems like there is nothing for Acura dealers, and it's not great for them. Anyway. Felix said he saw a Buick Cascada convertible. I did not know that vehicle even existed. It's a nice car. Yeah, actually, I spent a week with one. So if you want to hear what I think about a Cascada, definitely check out that review. It was many years ago, but it's nice. I mean, there's some downsides to it. It's not a sports car, you know, it's front wheel drive. But it, you know, I commended that bravery. They imported a car that wasn't for us and brought it over. You know, you can see it's got like the opal kind of center dash console area and stuff. But I enjoyed it. I think, you know, for its intended purpose of being a nice little runaround for people who don't need a sports car, it was nice. Unfortunately, the ride was a little stiff. That's the only thing I didn't love about it. And, you know, and also the price was a little problematic at the time. Now I'm sure they're pretty cheap. But at the time, it was like kind of competing with like 2 Series convertible, A3 convertible when that was a thing. And, you know, when you're talking about those kinds of prices, you know, the Audi, I'm sure, was a smoother drive. And the BMW, even that 2 Series, is probably going to be smoother than, because it's just they overly damped the dampers and the springs and the Cascada. So that's the only thing. But otherwise, I mean, it was nice. And Tastebud said, I smoked the C5 Z06 while cruising today in my Z. I got tuned and added a sub this weekend to get ready for spring, and love them both so far. That's awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying your Z. And I actually saw my first Z of the year this week too, actually, a white one. I think it's the same. I think there's a white one and a black one around here, and I think it's the same white one I might have seen last year. But happy to see my first Z of the year, and glad you're out enjoying yours too, Tastebud. And Timothy says, do you think GM overinvested in EVs and not enough in hybrids? Why doesn't GM do hybrids? That's a very good question, because they do good hybrids when they feel like it. The Volt, I mean, it's a plug-in hybrid, but the Volt was way ahead of its time. It was brilliant. They also were very early adopters of hybrids, relatively speaking. I mean, they had a hybrid version of the Yukon and the Tahoe. Even, I think the Escalade even got a version of that hybrid system in like 2008. Danny probably knows more about that if he wants to give us the and the little things as far as the anecdotes for the car trivia. But they did, I mean, they had hybrid stuff. There's a hybrid Malibu. They did these hybrids, but I think they just never got great traction with them and they didn't sell very well. And I think that just had them, kind of put it on the back burner. But I think, this is the my explanation for GM not doing hybrids is this is another result of their kind of echo chamber that they sometimes find themselves in, where they're caught completely unaware of what the rest of the market's doing. And I don't know if it's because they're based in Detroit, and I mean, if you drive around Detroit, like I'd say at least 2/3 of the cars are all American, and so if that's your daily experience in your daily life is you don't see the zillions of Priuses all over California, and you don't see, I mean, obviously these people travel, it's not like they never leave Detroit, but like I think that GM, because I've seen this in the past with GM, like I mean I remember hearing the story that whenever they came out with this current generation Silverado, before it got the interior refresh with the big screen, it had that small little 8-inch screen it debuted with, and that was when Ram was already doing the giant tablet. And someone asked, like, you guys didn't want to compete with Ram, like you deliberately came out with your truck after theirs that had a smaller screen. And like, I mean, I'm just playing a game of telephone here, but like the story goes that the GM person was like, oh, Ram has a bigger screen, we didn't know. Like, which I find hard to believe. And but that's sadly, it kind of explains like why would you launch like that. I mean, maybe the better answer is probably suppliers were already agreed upon for whatever, and they had to stick with it, or they did get rid of a certain amount of those screens before they could go to a new one or something, because there's some of that too. Like Honda got caught with when everyone hated them getting rid of the volume knob for last gen Civic and CRV. It took them years to just work through the committed amount of units that their supplier had to make before they're able to get rid of it. But it's like it just took time because they had a commitment there, and the supplier couldn't switch any sooner. So but getting back to the initial question, I think it's one of those things where I think there's an echo chamber where they just kind of got caught off guard by the giant surge of popularity of Toyota hybrids for some reason. I don't know why, because again, they shouldn't have, but like GM seems to have these weird blind spots sometimes, and it's real weird. I have no idea, but I mean, I honestly, for this, I can't pick on GM because there's a lot of companies that don't have hybrids. And I mean, I was just like, for example, doing the review on the Lexus NX 350h, last month. And I said in the competitor comparison segment, I'm like, well, if you want a regular hybrid, this is it. Still, no one else, all the Europeans even, only do plug-in hybrids. No one has regular hybrids other than Lexus still. And it's like, and people wonder why Lexus sells so well, why Toyota sells so well. I think they're good cars as well, but like they win by default. Like in so many segments, they're the only hybrid. And, again, it's not like this is the first time too that like gas has shot up, because they're going to make a killing this year on their hybrids. You think they had a good year last year? Holy crap. And then this new Toyota CEO is going to come in. He just inherited a gigantic gift with, obviously there's a bunch of other, headaches ahead for him because of all this Middle East conflict. But like, as far as sales goes, like buckle up, because Toyota is about to take off to the moon. I don't know about their stock, not a stock endorsement, but as far as car sales, like get ready for record sales they already were record, I think, last year, but new records for sure, because it's just going to be nuts. And they're launching, brand new RAV4 at the perfect time, all these EVs at a perfect time. But GM, I think the hybrid thing, and they've asked, like, I remember there was an interview, I think last year with Mary Barra, they're asking her, like, are you guys going to do a hybrid? I think she said, they finally said they're going to do a hybrid Equinox, because there's already one in China, which is the other thing that makes me want to pull my hair out and blow steam out of my ears. Like, they already have a hybrid Equinox, the same Equinox as our Equinox. It's like some weird different thing. It's the same thing we have in the States with a hybrid system. I think it's a plug-in hybrid. Even so, like, just bring over what you can. But like, they have that. And maybe, again, the suppliers, they can't bring those parts over because maybe they have to import them from China, or yeah, there's some kind of obligation that's holding them back. But I think they're like, oh yeah, we'll probably do the plug-in hybrid. I think she said like maybe 2027 calendar year is when they'll start to maybe bring over or incorporate the plug-in hybrid into the American Equinox. And it's like, this should be way quicker again, unless there's some other behind the scenes stuff that's got their hands tied. But like, but they like people have tried to push on this, and it's like, I don't know why GM doesn't do it. I don't know why everyone doesn't do it. Ford, I think, kind of did, decently. And I think they still do with Maverick and stuff. But like also like on that topic, why do we not have Bronco Sport Hybrid? Like all these things, like it's the same motor. Like you can put the same stuff for Maverick in Bronco Sport. Why we don't have that? I don't know. Honestly, like it makes me want to like spin up a conspiracy theory that like Toyota pays off companies to not do hybrids or something, because like it just like blows my mind that like no one bothers to maybe they just think they can't compete with them. That's kind of one of the excuses Honda gave this week for them pulling out of the EVs. They're like, oh, we just can't compete. It's like, wow, way to be competitive, guys. You're just like, we're not going to play the game, and we're just going to, hand the win to all the competitors. And Honda, especially, like they're like, we don't think we can keep up with the software side for the Chinese brands. And it's like, you're Honda, you're a big enough company. Throw a giant, pay offer at whoever is doing the software for BYD or something and poach them. This is what Tesla did. This is what, Lucid, I mean, all these people, like you poach people. So Apple did this, throw enough money at someone until they leave the company and they come work for you. And then you get the good software. Like, and instead just being, well, we can't compete. So we're just going to flush, $15 billion down the toilet or whatever and walk away and not play the game. It's just like, it's wild. So I don't know, what the deal is with GM, but I think them over-investing in EVs, I personally don't think they've over-invested in EVs, because when you look at like their market share long-term, like, I mean, Cadillac right now is the dominating EV luxury car maker. I mean, if you look at the volume, unless you count Tesla as luxury, which I don't, they're more premium, and even that's kind of a stretch sometimes. But like, if you're talking about especially the more legacy luxury brands, I mean, no one's touching Cadillac right now. And now Cadillac's even going into like the Vistix going into Europe, Lyrics in Europe. Like they're expanding into Europe too with what I think are really solid products. Again, we're biased. We have a Lyric, but like, I think that Cadillac, this is actually going to be huge for Cadillac. And I don't think that hasn't been fully like shown, and it hasn't fully materialized yet, but like, they're doing it the right way, in my opinion, of like, you have the Ultium platform, you make a crap load of stuff that's high appeal on that same platform, get that profitability a little bit faster. But I think they understand the long-term vision here, and the long-term vision, like with Honda and stuff, you can say, oh, sure, well, they can catch up later, or they can just, rebadge some Chinese stuff in a few years, to try and catch up or whatever. But like, GM's going to have control over their own platform and not have to buy off of somebody else, and have the profits. And it just, GM staying the course means that they are getting closer to that profitability target. Because like with Tesla, it took them, I don't know how many, 6 or 7 years of unprofitability. I mean, I remember the days where I was like, oh, Tesla's not going to make it, because they had still yet to turn a profit. I don't think they were actually a profitable company until, when was it, 2018 or something? They spent, almost a decade of burning cash, and yet everyone wants all these, current companies that are getting into EVs to instantly be profitable. It's like, that's not the way it works. The way it works is you spend a ton of money on a new platform and new technology. That's a big upfront cost, that $15 billion or whatever that Honda just, flushed down the toilet. That's that big upfront cost. And then you work to pay that off. But eventually you do. And then now you're like Tesla, who's making money hand over foot, as long as Elon's not putting, shooting himself in the foot. But like, they have these paid off platforms, and they're just raking in the cash. And I mean, they have other issues as well as far as profitability, but like, as far as the car side goes, like if, for a while there, they were doing really, really well whenever they were investing in the products and bringing out new products and stuff. That's how you do it. And then you have that platform, you pay it off, and you start to get profitable. So it's just a curve. It's a curve like any of these other things where, you make an investment and then you pay it off over time. It's kind of crazy. to me that, other companies just don't have that commitment to that. And because I mean, everyone I've talked to internally in the car industry, like everyone agrees eventually we're going to electric. The timeline is fuzzy. Some people don't, a lot of people don't agree on exactly when, but like that's the inevitable future. So I think Honda understands this. It's just that Honda has chosen, in my opinion, to just say we are just going to rebadge Chinese EVs whenever we actually need EVs in the future, and their heart's just not in it, and that's okay. But that's not going to be Honda anymore. That's going to be BYD with Honda badges. So I think once the music stops for large scale internal combustion engine vehicle popularity, Honda will cease to be the company that they once were. It won't be Honda anymore. It'll be a badge with no meaning behind it, really. I mean, yeah, maybe they'll tune the dampers differently in the steering or whatever, but like it's not going to be, just the same way that the Prologue isn't a real Honda, the same way the ZDX wasn't a real Acura. Yeah, that's the future of Honda and Acura, in my opinion. If they're going to dig their heels in and hope that they can just ride the gas train as long as they can, like that's not gonna that's not going to be good for the company long term, in my opinion. So I think GM has the right idea. I don't think they've overinvested. They've lost money, but it seems like most of the biggest losses for GM last year were because of tariffs. And that's something everyone's dealing with right now too. So, that's not unique, and hopefully they get some refunds. Who knows what ends up happening with all that stuff. That's a whole nother dumpster fire, but if that actually does happen, then maybe, some of these companies, don't have to be in quite as bad of a position financially if they get some of that back. But anyway, sorry for the tangent there, Timothy. But yeah, it is wild that more people don't do any of these hybrids, because you would think they would have learned their lesson that, it's gas will inevitably go up, at times. And whenever people want something fuel efficient, Toyota and Honda a little bit, but most of Toyota is the default answer there. And Shibuka, thank you so much for a super chat. And I see Juan, I also see yours too, so I'll get to that in a second. But Shibuka, thank you for the super chat. He says part of Japan's slowness with EVs was because of Japan's hydrogen strategy. Unlike Japan, others came to terms that hydrogen is not viable at all. Yeah, I mean BMW still strangely, and also Hyundai. Those are still the other two big ones that are still trying to make hydrogen work. But yeah, I think you're right. Japan really saw, that the hydrogen thing, they really want to make it work. And I commend them for that. I understand the appeal of hydrogen. It's just, I think their crystal ball is, 20 or 30 or 40 years too far. I think, long term, hydrogen has a real good future in a lot of stuff. I think, especially when you're talking commercial sector, I think it makes, a lot of sense. But I don't think, especially with look at how many people still are, every single time an EV catches fire, they're, freaking out about that and completely ignoring the Jeep, don't park your gas Wrangler in the garage because it's going to catch on fire or whatever, but people want to, put all that stuff on EVs. Imagine a hydrogen car. I mean, good grief. The amount of Hindenburg references you'd have on a daily basis would be ridiculous. So, I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. It is part of that. I think also though, I think that Toyota just did actually get a little bit caught off guard by how fast the EV adoption initially started happening. Because Toyota is a very conservative, slow company still in a lot of ways, which I think, as we're seeing now, has vastly paid off for them. But I think that, it was just something they couldn't react fast enough. And I think that's why you're seeing all these EVs coming out now, like I mentioned in the past, that, it takes 4 to 5 years to get these things to market. So everything you're seeing here in early 2026 was decided on in early 2022 when, again, everyone was paying 10 grand markups for EVs. And so, that's when they were like, oh crap, we got to get on this train. But, again, you got to get that train moving, and it just takes so damn long that, now we're seeing it in early 2026. So, I don't know how much of it was intentional. I really do think that Toyota has very good luck recently as far as their timing of product, and how things have played out. Because obviously they have no clue what crazy stuff's going to happen in the world next. But thankfully they they have the right products for everyone, and that's why I've always loved their approach. But yeah, the hydrogen thing I think is a waste of time and money right now. Someday it will make sense, but I think that's just too far out to be taking too seriously and putting a bunch of money into it right now. But I do think hydrogen has a future someday. And Juan, thank you so much for a super chat too. He says, sort of an abstract question. Why do you think it's so hard for BMW and Mercedes to build vehicles as reliable as Lexus? The Germans are nicer, but I've given up on new ones based on the experience with them. Yeah, that's a good question. I think the main answer that I have for that is that they over-engineer the European stuff. Not like the Lexus is a dinosaur. I mean, in some cases it kind of was. I mean, you look at the old GX and stuff. I mean, a lot of those are just, tried and true kind of platforms. So I think that's the main thing is, there's just way more stuff to go wrong in a BMW or a Mercedes. They have active grille shutters. They have, all these various, extra little add-ons to help with combustion or whatever. I mean, there's so many insanely complicated things, and they over-engineer. The Germans are just, they're very clever people with the way they engineer cars. Again, I'm talking in stereotypes, I apologize, but like generally speaking, the German vehicles, they have excellent engineers who can, engineer their way to the moon and back, and they're just very good at finding solutions, but the solutions are sometimes overly complex, and they work great during a lease period, but they just don't work great long term. Versus, ES for the past 10 years has been based on a Camry. So of course it's going to be the most reliable luxury sedan because it's based on the most reliable regular sedan. But that gives them a huge disadvantage. Drive an ES versus a 5 Series or even an E-Class. I mean, you can kind of tell it's got some cheaper, underpinnings to it. And for some people that's fine though, because the ride's smooth, you got comfy, cushy leather seats, you got everything you need, a nice stereo, whatever. And I think the Europeans just never accepted that as good enough in their mind. And so they had to overcomplicate everything and, always reach for the stars, which again, gotta love them for it. But like, that's what gets them into trouble, I think, is the end of the day. And that's why they depreciate faster, because all these extra little parts start to fail and screw up. And another example of this, actually, there was a patent I read about this week. Carbuzz did a little report about it. There's a patent that Porsche put out. Speaking of the hydrogen comment earlier, Porsche patented, and I'm going to try and regurgitate this remotely accurately, but the gist of it is they have patented a way to use hydrogen to heat up the combustion chamber faster, because the worst emissions typically are when the vehicle's in a warm-up period, which isn't a long period of time in modern vehicles, but they want to like superheat the engine quickly with hydrogen and combusting hydrogen, because hydrogen burns very hot if you don't, if you're actually burning it, you're not like, doing a fuel cell or something. When you're actually burning hydrogen, it's very hot. So the idea that they have is this is a Porsche patent for, I think the idea was to put like a 911 turbo or something. They were going to pull water from the washer fluid reservoir, bring that into a little like electrolysis thing, which is a kind of a simple, a very like actually ancient like hydrogen thing to like superheat this water, turn it into hydrogen, and actually have the car on board convert water to hydrogen, and then inject that either on startup or ahead of startup if it can try and predict when you're going to come out to the car and start it up, like if you have a routine every day, which makes it even more complicated. But start burning hydrogen preemptively so that the engine is already like pre-warmed for you. I don't know why they don't just do like an engine block heater or something, but maybe they could, but this is just a more complicated way of doing it. But so they're going to have an onboard hydrogen generator essentially to just for a few minutes heat up the engine and then go away. And it's like so complicated but again, it's because they are just like, we need to eke out every ounce of efficiency and reduce emissions as much as possible, which again, I love them for, trying to make progress, but it's just so complicated. And something like that's just a nightmare. And so that's why, there's no way that's going to be a reliable system for a long period of time. It's going to require maintenance and adjustments and tweaks and, you know, that kind of stuff. Just more things that go wrong. And this is why I think EVs also have an excellent future, because there's less stuff to go wrong typically, you know, versus all the hundreds of moving pieces in an engine and stuff, compared to, you know, a stationary electric motor that's not really doing a whole lot, you know. So, you know, anytime you add more parts to break, they're going to inevitably break at some point, and just you have more failure points. And I think the Germans just have way more failure points than the Lexus does, and I think that's the main issue. There's probably other things too. You know, it's also you know, the depreciation I think comes down to the way they structure their lease deals and incentives, and again the way they engineer the cars and stuff. There's other things at play, but I think that's the heart of the issue as far as why. Because they're always, you know, you always compare brand new European whatever to a comparable Japanese or American thing, and the Europeans always are the fanciest. They always have the most cutting edge stuff. That's the other thing too, the cutting edge component. Not only is it overly complicated, but it's overly complicated, and they just figured it out last year or whatever. So it's this, you're on the cutting, bleeding edge of tech, which again, for a lot of people, it's exciting. They like that. But, you know, you're a beta tester essentially for a lot of this stuff, and beta testers, obviously things break. And so I think there's some of that that's going on as well. So that's, I think, to me, the best answer there that I know of. Maybe others have more insight too, but that's always been my understanding of kind of their Achilles heel with BMW and Mercedes, and even Audi as well. Great question, and thanks so much for the super chat, Juan. I really appreciate it. And Nico, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hello, went to the Shark Sens game. Weather was bad, almost spun out twice on the highway. Wow. Well, glad you held it together there and were able to get there. He says, by the way, I put X pipes instead of cold air intake, and she purrs. Nice. I'm glad you're enjoying that. Hopefully you're not having any cops breathing down your neck here this week. But anyway, thanks for stopping by, Nico, and thank you so much for the super chat too. And let me see here. Where were we here? Sorry, I'm so far behind. I know I'm little tangenty tonight, but at least we have another hour here to go. Try and be a little more concise. So Luke says, Northern Virginia and Illinois and Ohio are the most annoying drivers to me. Add Massachusetts to that list. Interesting. Yeah. And Luke, doing the trucking there, you know the country and the driver. So if anyone would know, Luke would know. So yeah, that's I'm glad I'm not the only one who gets annoyed by Northern Virginia drivers, at least. And glad that Pennsylvania is not on your list either, Luke. Although I would understand, especially Philly gets a little crazy. Not to be Pittsburgh versus Philly, because that's sometimes a thing. But every time I drive through Philly, it's a little stressful too. And Lantern Tail says, I had a guy flip me off in a Prius V as he almost cut me off in my Tesla. Tesla already gets enough hate, but I got a bright red one, which makes it so much worse. That's unfortunate. He said, Seattle drivers are so hateful and bad at driving. Gotcha. Yeah, I know there's been, especially the Cybertruck buyers. I mean, those people definitely have it rough. But yeah, I mean, the aggressive driving is you know, a complete just crossing of the line. Same as, you know, there was the vandalization that was even happening early on there last year, and it's like, look, you can hate the car, you can hate whatever, but like, you don't vandalize someone's car, because it's, you know, even if it's symbolic of something or whatever, and even if, you know, that person did buy it and put terrible flags on it or whatever you want to say, like, you know, it's their investment, and you're actually screwing someone over financially, you know, by messing with their car and stuff. It's just, I'll never support vandalizing vehicles. If I find it hard to even, you know, see these channels that just wreck cars for views and stuff. It's just, I always feel bad about any car getting damaged, because, you know, people, you know, take a lot of pride in their cars, and even if you don't agree with their choice, like, yeah, you never want to get aggressive like that. That's crazy. And let me see. And One Car Fast says GR Corolla. So cheers to you and GR Corolla. And Gavin says, considering a used 23 WRX, but want your opinion on other vehicles in its categories, or should I wait for any future vehicles coming? So if you're looking primarily in that category, I'm assuming by category you mean manual all-wheel drive fun cars. If I'm, assuming correctly there, GR Corolla. Cheers. That's always my go-to pick, but the WRX does have some key advantages. It has a bigger back seat. It's a little more usable on a daily basis. The trunk is bigger than the little hatch of the GR Corolla. So, WRX is more livable for sure. Also, if you're going to mod, WRX has, this new gen, everyone seems to they can't stop talking about how they love, the mods on them, and, the amount of gains you get out of a tune, and they hold up well with tunes, it seems. So if that's your thing, and if that's kind of the direction you're headed, I think WRX is really, there's not a lot of choices anyway, but like WRX is probably the actual best choice there for you if that's the goal. I would need more context to make a good recommendation. As I often say, feel free if you ever want to drill down more on this, you can send me a message. I also do one-on-one video calls on my website, mattmaranmotoring.com, if you want to get more in depth with this, but just high level stuff. A lot of people do also enjoy Golf R if you need all-wheel drive. Golf R, I think, was a better value. Now you're going used, so used 23, should be a pretty good value still. WRX is good. Personally, I'd rather have GR Corolla. It's just more fun. If you're going to keep it stock and you don't need to have the biggest back seat and the biggest trunk, GR Corolla is just a lot more fun. And if you are someone, I don't know your background, but if you've enjoyed WRXs in the past or other boosty turbo cars, the WRX has, for the new generation, a pretty flat torque curve, which is the, best way to do it as far as, acceleration and performance and all that kind of stuff. But, isn't quite as fun. And the GR Corolla has that peaky character where really comes alive because it's a 3-cylinder. It needs that turbo boost. So it really comes alive in those upper RPMs, just like the old WRXs used to. And that's really one of the biggest things that I loved about the WRX. And one of the biggest reasons why I was a WRX fan and why I kind of cooled off on that, even with the 2015s and beyond, is just you never had that same rip like you got with the old, EJs. And that's what I love. And that's why GR Corolla has that. And I think that's the biggest thing. That and the center diff controller and stuff. Also, like I just, GR Corolla has the more, I think the manual actually feels slightly better in WRX, but I like the auto rev matching in the GR Corolla. It's a little easier to drive in traffic. WRX can be a little tricky to be smooth with. So by the way, if you test drive a WRX and you haven't yet, don't feel bad if you're rough, because it definitely has a harder learning curve than a lot of manuals. The WRX manual, even after a week of driving a press car WRX manual, like I still have an occasional rough shift. And I've been driving manual for, has it been now 20 years basically? I've been driving manuals, and I still occasionally have a rough shift in a WRX. So it's just a little tricky with that sometimes, but so that's pretty much it. Golf R is great. And if you go use Golf R, you can get the manual too. If you go, Mark 8 or Mark 7.5. Those are really, really good too. And also the last little thing I'll say is, even the 23 WRX, they get horrible fuel economy. I think I was getting, it was the winter time, I think, but even in the summer when I had the TS and stuff and the TR, and both of those were summer, I don't think I got out of the 20s for MPG, or into the 20s. I was like teens for the fuel economy. So it's just horrible. Like a Golf R will get like 30 MPG on the highway, while WRX maybe gets 20 or low 20s if you're lucky. It's just like the Germans, again, they kind of over-engineered a little bit more, but it's like it's so much more efficient with Golf R. Even GR Corolla, especially that 3-cylinder, if you're not in the boost, very fuel efficient. So there's other options for sure. But again, depending on how, where you fit as far as exactly what you're looking for, WRX is a very good choice for a lot of people. So hopefully it helps you a little bit. Again, feel free to, do any follow-up questions you want, Gavin, but hopefully it helps you a little bit there. And and good luck with the shopping around. And I hope it's a fun experience for you. Decepticon, thanks for stopping by. I see Lancelot there reminding everyone to drink there. And Timothy says, would you choose the GR Corolla manual over Golf R manual? Money, no object. So I already kind of touched on that a little bit, but between those two, yes, I go GR Corolla. Even though Golf R, and I mean the whole Volkswagen community, collectively groans the second I say this every time. But yes, Golf R is objectively the better car. And if you are racing cars on a spec sheet, Golf R is the easy winner. No question about it. I don't debate that. But from behind the wheel, to me at least, again, everyone's different, but to me, GR Corolla is, 1.5 times the fun, or maybe even double the fun of Golf R to me. So yeah, money no object. Even if Golf R was that cheap as GR Corolla, I would still take GR Corolla all day, every day. Personally, it's that. I mean, I love it. I mean, and even I'm a full blown, fan of EVs, and I think it's the right choice for the kind of driving I do with my personal car, which is not a lot and a lot of sitting around. But like, if I could afford a GR Corolla, it'd be in my garage yesterday. Like, I mean, it would be no question, hands down. I think it's currently my favorite car, within reasonable price ranges. So yeah, basically anytime GR Corolla is up against anything, I'm going to say GR Corolla, unless we're talking about I need a huge back seat or I need a huge cargo space. Then it'll be something else. But otherwise, can't beat it. And also, apologies, I missed a couple of super chats here, a bunch of super chats. So apologies, Raphael, that I missed yours. I didn't intend to skip over that, so I'm sorry. I don't know why that one was in the middle of the other ones here. But Raphael, thank you for a super chat. He says, I'm going on record. I prefer gas for the sound, but don't hate EVs at all. Those people are stupid. We can all just like cars. Yeah, and I totally agree. And I completely agree with you. Like, if you watch the Maserati review just yesterday, I love the sound of that thing. I was giggling, which, by the way, some of you have been asking about reaction videos and stuff. If you've been missing some of my reactions, because it's been a while, I don't have crazy reactions too often. Watch the Maserati video just for the acceleration, even, because it's one of those giggly, fun, Superworks fan kind of reviews where I really had a blast in that thing. And the sound is a large component of why, and the peaky engine, which again, kind of, you can sense the theme of the things that really get me going as far as cars. Like, that's a peaky engine, so much fun, a great sound, so much fun. So I'm right there with you, Raphael, for sure. And as I've said many times before, there's a lot of people I would not recommend an EV to. People who, if they came to me and said, I live in an apartment, or I drive, 1,000 miles a week, I'd be like, do not buy an EV. There's people I would say, definitely, like, this is not for you. Do not do it. But like, yeah, and so I fully recognize that. And that's, a lot of people in that were pissed at me for the Honda video or whatever, just like think I'm just like, oh, everyone should have an EV. And it's like, no, like, only, I think 60 or 70% of people even have a house where they could charge. And, it's like, obviously that means it's not going to be for 100% of people. It's maybe for 70% at the most, before you discount and, cut out all the people who, do road trips every month, or do 30,000 miles a year, or whatever the case is. So like, yeah, so I want to be clear and go on the record too, that it's not like I think everyone should have an EV. I never want to give that impression. It's absolutely, I love gas stuff still. And there's, for a lot of people, it absolutely does not make sense to have an EV. And I think you would be, making a gigantic mistake if you got an EV for some people. So it's, I also want to be very clear about that. I know some people want to just assume I've drank the Kool-Aid or something, but it's not the case. Darnell, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, another hour, order you some Wendy's a biggie bag. Going for 2 hours here, and I'd love some Wendy's right now. But I don't know about you guys. I do have like all the apps for all the fast food, companies to like see if there's ever any good deals on some of them. And like, Wendy's used to have great deals. Like, they even had a March Madness thing last year where you got like a Dave single for like $1. And I was like, oh, this is great. Again, me being very penny pinching these days, because I have to be, that was like great. And like, now it's like Wendy's has like no good deals. Like, I haven't gone to Wendy's in forever, because it's just like they have like no discounts. And it's like, in this economy, you got to be putting up deals. Like, you cannot just McDonald's had a huge monopoly thing where you're getting all kinds of free food. Like, I was going to McDonald's far more than a healthy, even American should go to McDonald's, because it was like, I'm getting free food left and right. This is great. So I know Wendy's probably maybe there's not as big. They can't afford to do it, but man, Wendy's has been dropping the ball here the past year or so. It's kind of a shame. But let me see. Thank you so much, Darnell, for the super chat there. And Ranjan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, started with a CX-5 and moved to a CX-70 lease. I find it too bulky and not as sporty. Looking for an SUV hybrid with a sporty nature under 40 grand. Recommendations. So I think the first thing that pops into my head, if you're not in a hurry, is wait for a new CX-5 hybrid. It's coming next year. That would probably be, if you're familiar with Mazda, you like Mazda, I don't know how you feel about the new screen setup and stuff, which if you don't like it, I do not blame you at all. But if that's not a deal breaker for you, I feel like that may be the most comfortable choice that, kind of probably ticks all those boxes, because the new CX-5 drives great. And the hybrid, shouldn't be much worse. And, the thing is, with CX-50 hybrid, because I tell you, maybe check that out if you haven't already. CX-50 hybrid, it's just the Toyota RAV4 hybrid, which is, a fine hybrid. But the way Mazda integrated it, I think it's not as good in the Mazda as it is in the Toyota. Because at least the media car that I had, there was like a vibration under acceleration that just, it just seemed like something was like out of balance whenever the engine was revving up. I don't know if the motor mounts just weren't done very well. I don't know. I need to drive another one to like reassess to make sure it wasn't just that one car. But if, you test drive a CX-50 hybrid and it seems nice to you, that could be a good choice as well. Otherwise, really RAV4 is great. And I really do. Under 40, XSE, probably gonna be over that, especially go for a higher one. But SE, if you're okay with not having a ton of bells and whistles, an SE RAV4 could be probably pretty decent. But I'm trying to think of like other sportier stuff that's hybrid. Because there's not a lot again with the hybrid stuff, that offers that. I think CRV actually does handle very nicely. It's just you get a lot less with CRV, and it's a price premium. It's just a smaller screen. There's no pano roof. There's no ventilated seats. And also, the hybrid CRV seem to be mostly better, but I don't have a ton of faith in Honda's engine building right now after, my whole expose on not expose, but my bringing extra attention to the already established, well-known problem of the 1.5T engine. It's a little hard for me to recommend any Honda right now with that engine, or even the V6s have had some issues and stuff. So the V6s are mostly fine, but the hybrids it seems like it's a lot more rare. But I have heard a few hybrid owners in that Honda video I did about the engine issues that said like, no, my hybrid motor blew too at 24,000 miles or whatever. Again, maybe they're just a one-off. Those types of videos do attract every single person that's ever had a bad experience, and all the people happily driving around aren't, looking up how terrible CRVs are or anything. So, it's a skewed sample for sure of, respondents. But I think, depending on how you feel about that, if you do your own research on, the CRV and CRV hybrid in particular, if it seems fine to you, CRV hybrid just, is disregarding that stuff. It drives great. And again, if you don't need to have the most bells and whistles, CRV hybrid probably is going to be the other top pick, I would say. Because if you go Tucson, not really sporty. You go Sportage, not really sporty, ironically. They're fine, but they're just not that sporty. And what else is there in that segment? That's pretty much it, I think. Because, Escape's gone now. Forester, not really sporty. I don't love Forester hybrid, and it's just too expensive for what you get anyway. And this, you got to deal with that miserable middle screen that's crap. So yeah, I'd say there's maybe one other one that I'm forgetting. But I think that's everything. So sorry if that's like a whole laundry list I gave you there, but I definitely start with CX-5 or CX-50 hybrid first. Work outwards from there, try out RAV4, try out CRV. I think CRV, though, it is really, that's probably the best, still probably the best handling one of the bunch. CX-5, again, if you want to wait for the new hybrid version of that, could be right up there with it. But Honda does a very good job with handling still. That's one thing I will give them credit for. So those are probably my best recommendations. If I think of anything else, I'll let you know. But thank you so much for the super chat again. Hopefully it helps you a little bit. And let me know if you have any follow-up questions for sure. Let me see. Where were we here? Danny says about a guy is honking a lot, and hold on, let me see. Mr. 705 says, thanks for the feedback on the RAV. The model would be an XLE Canadian. I've been a Honda guy. My last 5 new vehicles have been Honda, but I think it's time for a change. Gotcha. Yeah. Like I said, it seems like RAV4 should be pretty solid, especially the hybrids now, because we talked previously about the potential 8-speed automatic issues in some of the other, Toyota stuff. But, with the eCVT, you don't have any of those issues. So RAV4 hybrid should be about as reliable as it gets to. And it's, again, a really great car. So I'm glad that was helpful for you, Mr. 705. Let me know if you do test drive one. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it too. Wits End Cottage says, is the Uncharted overpriced given its size and poor rear seat legroom? Yes, and I actually did a rant on this as well, where I said, is Uncharted DOA? So you can watch that if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts on that. But as far as, it's not so much the size, it's just the price and the fact that you can get a trail seeker for like a few grand more with way more power, way more space. It's too closely priced. Like there needs to be way more of a price difference. I mean, because Trail Seeker starts at 40 grand. It's like, it still blows my mind that they're selling it that cheap. And like, I'm pretty sure they're also pouring on incentives like Toyota is, which, I'm trying to not be annoying here, but like BZ Woodland, especially at 45 with a $6,500 instant discount. I think it's $5,000 if you pay cash, but if you would do lease or maybe finance at $6,500, but like that thing under $40,000 with a 3.9 second 0 to 60s, what like a bunch of the reviewers are actually getting, they claim 4.4, but like it's a under 4 seconds 0 to 60 in a wagon that looks cool in my opinion at least, but like a fast wagon for under $40,000, like holy crap. Like if it wasn't electric, people would be lining up outside the showroom, and there'd be markups on these things. But regardless, that's anyone who's shopping for an electric Subaru. I'm just going to tell you, just get the Trail Seeker. You like the Solterra? Cool. Pay $2 grand more, get the Trail Seeker. You like Solterra? You like Uncharted? Cool. Go get the Trail Seeker. I did the Toyota versions. The CHR, is the version of the Uncharted for Toyota. It's great. And if you would like something smaller and maybe you do a lot of tight parallel parking, or you just want something that's not quite that big, there are some people where Uncharted makes sense. So I don't want to just, paint everyone with the same brush. But, if you don't care about the extra length and all that, it just, to me, that's the better way to go. But Uncharted, though, because again, just as far as CHR goes, rear seat legroom isn't terrible. And it's, if you sit in the back of a Crosstrek and you sit in the back of the Uncharted, which they're not far off in price. It's a little pricier, but like especially for someone who wanted a faster Crosstrek and you're okay with electric, like that's Uncharted. And I feel like, the space inside is fairly similar. And look at how many, I sell 170,000 Crosstreks a year or something. So I don't think the space is necessarily the problem. It's just the pricing, in my opinion. In a vacuum, again, if that doesn't bother you, or if there's better discounts, you can get a bigger gap in price between the two of them, then there's a case to be made for Uncharted, I think, for sure. And it's also nice that Subaru offers a higher version, because the CHR, like you can't get leather in CHR, you can't get what else? You can't get ventilated seats in CHR, a couple other things, and you can get all that stuff in the Uncharted. So, they all have their little niches, and for certain people that'll do it. But Subaru just they're like, oh, okay, we'll have our electric Subarus and they'll all basically be the same price. Just pick your size. And I don't think that's a compelling strategy for the smaller ones. It's great for the Trail Seeker, but it just means you have this extreme of Trail Seeker is an amazing bargain and Uncharted is maybe DOA, So but hopefully it helps you a little bit there. Let me know if you have any follow-up. I know I will be having an Uncharted in May, I think. So stay tuned if you are not in a hurry. I will be having thoughts on, and it's going to be a sport trim, so the mid grade there of the Uncharted I will have. And I'm also getting a Trail Seeker a couple weeks after that. So I'll have my experience in the Subaru versions of those, but definitely go watch my thoughts on the Toyota versions if you want to hear my thoughts right now on those. Because it's going to be basically the same, I'm assuming. But I'll see in my review. Maybe there will be noticeable changes, but I don't anticipate any. And Project M97 says, saw your review on the Sentra. I recently rented it for a few days. I'm not a Nissan guy, but I enjoyed it. The rear looks a lot like the Lexus IS. You're right, actually. Yeah, it does. I hadn't thought about that. I said the two-spoke steering wheel was practical. Yeah, I kind of do appreciate those more and more. I also thought they were a little weird at first, but if you're on the highway and you just have the adaptive cruise and lane keep going, and you just have that one hand there at the bottom of the wheel, it's kind of nice. And so. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it though. And hopefully maybe the review helped you to kind of be a little more familiar with the car, so you were prepared for the rental a little bit better there. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, they're great cars. I mean, the seats are so comfortable, and especially as rental cars, if you're doing a lot of miles in a rental, Sentra's great. Because that's what I did whenever I went out to Ohio to pick up the Fiat last year. My rental was a Sentra. It was just a one-way trip on the highway there to go get the Fiat, and that was great. A base Sentra is a really nice little car for the money. It's so underappreciated, I think, because it's actually, I think it's nicer than a Corolla. I mean, I don't know if it'll last as long as a Corolla, but I think it actually has a chance of doing that these days too. But anyway, Mr. 705 says, I think it'll be going in this week to run numbers and see how long it might take to get one. Well, I hope it doesn't too long. I know that's the one thing that's really hard about Toyotas is it's just a giant pain. I mean, it's, for good reason, because they're good cars and everyone wants them. And so I guess that's just, the territory you're in there. But it's just a shame that it's not plentiful and it's not easy to get them. But I hope it's not too much of a pain for you, Mr. 705. And Lantern Tail says, Mercedes made a luxury EV minivan. It looks very nice. It's called the VLE class. You should Google it. It's very nice outside, inside. Yeah, we actually talked about VLE back on Wednesday in the live. And I agree. It's pretty cool. And, it kind of falls in line with, the luxury truck kind of argument I've said for a long time. Where like, why do we not have luxury brands doing a rebrand and rebadge of, the regular mainstream trucks? Like Lincoln and Cadillac should have had a truck years ago, in my opinion. And the same thing extends to the minivans. We're seeing, again, there's a lot more, this wealth gap of you have, a lot of people who are now wealthier, and, the wealthy are getting wealthier quicker. And so like, there's a growing demand for this upper end stuff. And like, before it was like, okay, you want a minivan? Well, the nicest you can get is a Sienna Platinum from Toyota with a, little 240 horsepower engine under the hood. And I mean, Chrysler kind of dipped their toes in this slightly with the Pinnacle trim of the Pacifica, but it's still, I guess Chrysler, you could say, is historically a little more prestigious, but, nothing that's going to get a luxury buyer impressed, and so I think it's going to be a good experiment to see, because I think if Mercedes actually does succeed with that, which I think, it's not going to do huge volumes. But if it does seem like some kind of success, I think you can see a lot of others. We talked last live about, maybe Lexus bringing the LM in at some point, and others could follow pretty quickly if that turns out to be a hot trend, because we see minivans in general are really shooting up. I think in general, they are all up something between 20 and 40% last year. I can't remember which end of that spectrum it was, but they, a noticeable jump for minivans. And I think we can start to see more and more of that. And so I think it's smart of Mercedes to do that for sure. And Corvette says, well, our garage has been remodeled to make room for my dad's BMW iX. So finally it's now safely in the garage, especially since we might be getting severe storms tomorrow. Man, yeah. Well, thankfully it seems like it's been calm here. I forgot to mention at the beginning of this live stream, we've had some really high winds too. Actually lost a couple of shingles the other day, and people have been out of power. Like my sister was out of power for like 20 hours. Just got it back yesterday. But if this live suddenly cuts out, it'll be because we lost power, but hopefully not. I think we're supposed to get some more 50-mile-per-hour plus winds here tonight. So fingers crossed that everyone keeps their power. Hopefully things go okay for you. as well, Corvette there. And yeah, definitely nice to have garages to keep your cars safe from the crazy weather. And Lancelot says, no internet to broadcast our mistakes. Yeah, apologies. I know we're so far behind in the comments, but getting back to you being born in 1975, that's very, very true. Which also, again, helps mental space because you don't have these things haunting you forever. Aside from a story or a rumor that gets spread around, it's not something that you got to be reliving forever if you don't want to. And Michelle says, I grew up in the 2000s. The internet was there, but it wasn't a part of life the way it is now. Just there in the background. I still played outside, went to friends' houses on my bike. Good times. Yeah, same. And yeah, I agree. It's been more so. Yeah, I feel like especially the past 10 years where it's really ramped up so much. And he says, in wintertime, play games on the computer or play my Wii, which I still have and still works to this day. Yeah, which gotta love that old tech. I mean, not like a Wii is that old, but stuff that just worked. It didn't need software updates all the time. Didn't need to, have patches and stuff. It was just fully baked from the beginning, and it worked. What a crazy concept. And Danny says, here are the two oldest gaming systems in my house, an N64. And this one will come as a shocker. We also have an original Xbox. My mom bought brand new in 2003 for her Christmas present to my dad, as it was their first Christmas together after getting married. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. We have an N64 here too. Actually, one of my friends gifted it to me. Actually, he technically gifted it to Beth because I think she was talking about maybe, I can't remember if it was Mario Kart 64 or what. So he gave us an N64. And yeah, I have GoldenEye. I just haven't had any time to play it, but I love the N64. But yeah, for me, as I grew up on Super Nintendo and PS1, those were the main ones for me until, and then obviously I got PS2, Xbox 360 and all that. But anyway, let me see. Luke says, sadly, when I saw that limo, I was dealing with Long Island Expressway traffic and it was on a side road. Yeah, you definitely all hands on deck for that expressway for sure. So totally get it, Luke. And Ron Fenton Run says, hey, Matt, thoughts on the upcoming BMW iX3? Looks impressive in 400-mile range as well. Yeah, seems really impressive too. I agree. I mean, it seems like they've made some really nice improvements on efficiency with that. I'm still warming over to the looks, but that's subjective, but otherwise I think it's really, going to be very well done. I don't know. Did they reveal pricing yet? Because that's kind of be the make or break thing for that one, I think. But yeah, they're on the right track. I think it's a nice evolution, from the prior gen EV stuff that they've done. And this is, the kind of stuff we're expecting and are going to continue to see of, longer ranges, better battery tech. And so, yeah, I think iX3 is going to be really good. And also another car, launching at a very good time right now. And I think it's going to be very good for BMW. I mean, BMW's done very well with their electric sales as well. They're another one that they're right up there with Cadillac as being the top brands to really be snagging that early market share of EVs and, getting people in their ecosystem. And that's going to pay dividends down the road when you keep those people in the brand and, get them used to the way you do things, the way you do EVs. Yeah, so I think iX3 is going to be great for BMW. Lantern Tales also says, what do you think about, or what do you think people will think and react to the new 3 Series when it comes out? Yeah, and I still don't really know much about it, but like I said, it seems like it's going to be smaller than the last generation. So I think the first thing, if that is actually the case, the first thing people are going to say, especially the regular, non-enthusiasts and stuff, is going to be like, oh, it's smaller. Why'd they go backwards or something like that? Again, maybe the interior space is better. I have no idea. I think it's what, the 17th, right? I think it's Tuesday is when the reveal is supposed to happen. I think. So, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And I'm probably going to do a rant or, a feature video on it whenever it does come out, and give all my thoughts on it this week. But, I hope that it's just not too small. I like the idea of them going back to, maybe E46 or E90 kind of size, something like that. But That's the only thing is I hope that it's still, you know, a good usable size and they didn't go too small with it. But I think it's going to be really cool. I think, you know, from what we've seen, that's actually the best application of this new class styling too. Because in the iX3, it just kind of looks like, you know, like the nostrils are just kind of like stretched and like, I don't know. The iX3, this might not make any sense at all. It reminds me of a vampire, like it's coming to get you kind of thing. I don't know why, but that's just like, that's what I think. I think vampire when I look at iX3 front end. Let me know if I'm crazy or if you any of you were struck by that same impression as well. I'm probably just in a class of one there for that. But anyway, but I think 3 Series should be good. You know that I just have no hands-on experience with any of these BMWs. So you know, the idea of that like base of the windshield head-up display kind of thing sounds promising. I still hate the steering wheel. It looks like it's upside down constantly. And just it's just weird. Like, why are you doing the extra spoke when it's not needed? Like, just get rid of it and you save yourself money and better profit margins, and people are happier. Like, just strange choices. But anyway, yeah, other than that though, I think it's hopefully going to be pretty good. We'll see. Hoping to get my hands on it. Just again, I get no love from BMW. I have no hands-on opportunities with any of them really. So you know, my experience with BMW is the stuff on the used market, which, if you haven't seen them, I don't know, I can't remember if you saw the member post or not, Lantern Tales, if you commented or not, but, you know, I'll be having another BMW I'll be covering this week. I don't want to spoil it for, you know, I want to keep that member exclusive, but there's going to be another fun BMW here to watch this week on the channel. So stay tuned for that. And another, sampling of BMW stuff, since again it's not a common thing for me. And Danny says, oh, okay, the Xbox is still in its original packaging unopened. It's been in the box since 2003. Wow. So I guess your dad wasn't that excited about playing it for whatever reason, but man, well, I don't know what they go for unopened, but that sounds like it's going to be very valuable someday. So definitely keep that in good shape. That's awesome. Let me see. Timothy's asking what ETF fund I invest in. I do not invest in any ETF funds because I don't have investable money, unfortunately. The channel hasn't done well in the past few years. And yeah, I wish I'd have money to invest in, but I've got none of that. No retirement funds, anything like that. Just, you know, that's one of the things of, you know, being a 1099 employee, no benefits, no nothing. You know, I mean, I get royalties on the channel. So that's kind of the idea is even if I quit tomorrow, like I'd still have money coming in, you know, until YouTube, you know, quit being a thing or whatever. So, you know, there's that thing, but now I have no investments whatsoever, unfortunately. I used to, but had to cash them all out. Let me see. So Danny says the N64 still works. We also have an original Wii. Nice. So I'm glad the N64 is still working. And Lancelot says Roman Micah does seem like a great guy. Yeah, he absolutely is, 100%. Luke says, have you ever met Kirk Kreifels? He seems chill. I also really like the Car Confections guys. Yeah, they're all great. Actually just, yeah, I was able to hang with Kirk a bunch on the CX5 drive actually. And yeah, the one night at dinner there, it was just me and him and actually Drew from Car Confections, who were all just, we were just hanging around a fire pit, just talking about life and talking about cars a little bit, but you know, it's also fun to not talk about cars because that's always like the go-to thing. But then it's, you know, some of the ones that you're, you know, closer with, like, you know, me and Kirk have had, you know, a lot of great conversations in the past. I've been, you know, happy that I've known him for many years now. But yeah, we were just chatting there, overlooking the Pacific Ocean and hanging out there. So yeah, I had some good conversations with Kirk. Me and him don't always see eye to eye, I will say that, but that's the great thing about, you know, YouTube space and also being able to like amicably disagree with people sometimes and have, you know, intelligent and constructive and polite, you know, debates and conversations and stuff, you know. So there's certain things, you know, that I don't agree with it, you know, Kirk either, you know, does in his videos or says, or, you know, whatever the case is, but he's, you know, he's doing what's best for him and his channel. And he's doing great. And I'm happy for him. He's a very nice guy. Very happy to say that, yeah, he's another one of the ones that I've spent a lot of time with. And the Car Confections guys are also great too. Mason and Drew are awesome. And even Josh, who's their other videographer, guy who I think he might have made some appearances. I can't recall, but they're all fantastic. And yeah, it was fun, like, chatting with Mason last year, whenever they were expecting their son there, chatting about dad life, and he was asking me tips, and what I would, the high level stuff that I would, kind of suggest, and just experiences I had, and takeaways and things like that, and just all kinds of good fun conversations like that. So that's one of the things the trips, I've always said, the trips are hard to justify, but man, I do love just the get to hang out with all the other car review guys. It's a really great group for the most part. There's just, majority of them are just fantastic, wonderful. Can't recommend them enough. They're all great. And Lantern Tail says, my Hyundai Venue is approaching 50,000 miles. I bought it brand new in 2020. The car is very reliable. Again, if you do all the maintenance, any car can be reliable. I totally agree with that. You're absolutely right. I'm glad it's been treating you well. And Jordan says, hey, Matt, I'm a Mustang guy, and I've watched your videos since high school. I'm not much of a good speaker. So you have any tips on how to keep talking while doing car reviews? I mean, for me, part of it is just lots of filler words, because, that's what the filler words are, at least for me. Like, it's processing time, because unfortunately, I just don't have the fastest processor up here. I'll be the first to admit it. So, like that's my thinking time in between statements and linking stuff together. But I think I'm a bad person to follow, as far as if you're looking for someone that does speak well in car reviews. I don't think I'm, one of the best examples. I actually was talking to Eddie X about this. Speaking of, sorry to name drop again, but another YouTuber. We were drive partners for the Cadillac Optic V event, and so I was sitting passenger seat silently, while he's doing his video there. And I complimented him. I'm like, dude, you have like no filler words. I'm like, this is really impressive that you were able to like master. I mean, Eddie's also way smarter than me, and he's again got just he's able to kind of, I think, speak better as a result of just him really being quick on his feet and stuff. But he's like a few years ago, he's like, I completely like broke that habit and purged all filler words. He's like, I got comfortable with silences, and I think that's something I'm working on, and I'm also recommending to you, be comfortable with silence. And if you can be comfortable with that, then I think it allows you to be more succinct. You can also, the stuff you do say lands harder, and people pay attention more if it's not just me just all the time. Like if it's like, it's the whole, I mean, you see this in all kinds, whether you're talking about, poetry or whatever, the more you can say in the least amount of words, the better off it's often received, and it's the more profound it is. So, I'd say don't be like me, honestly. I appreciate your support, and I've been watching the videos for so long. But I would say definitely try to not be like me, as far as you just, how you present the videos. Watch Eddie, watch some of these other guys that are just really very clear. I've always idolized like Henry Catchpole, these people who, I mean, I think, a few of their remarks are kind of, not scripted necessarily, maybe pre-prepared, or just, again, but some of it is just like, they're so good with just explaining themselves, very in a non-verbose way, and just really, really good. So I think there's a lot of really good presenters out there. I just don't think I'm one of the best. So definitely watch some of those guys, and I think that'll kind of put you on the right track for how to really keep talking. But again, especially with cars, it depends on what kind of cars you're reviewing, but especially if you're reviewing something that sounds good, it's okay to take a beat and do a little exhaust, acceleration kind of sound bite, or do little things to kind of break it up. But just don't feel the need to keep talking the whole time. I think it's the bottom line, especially these days with short form. Everyone wants less anyway. So the goal is to not do 30-minute car reviews like I do. Try to be more concise. And this is, again, all stuff I'm also trying to work on and break old habits and stuff. But I think that's kind of the best advice I can give there. But yeah, best of luck with going for it, and I hope that it goes well for you. And Vishal says, do you think Volkswagen could bring a Passat back by taking the Jetta and stretching it? I feel like it wouldn't be that expensive to do and wouldn't cost a whole lot to buy. I mean, that's a good idea. I just don't know. I mean, I guess it's just MQB, right? So I think they could, I mean, they could pull out the old Passat. I mean, it's the same platform still, essentially. So, I mean, if they just put that stuff back into production, I think that would be fine. There's Passat also overseas. I think it's wagon only though now, right? But I mean, it wouldn't be impossible to take that car, make an American sedan body, and then, just sell it as is. I don't know. I mean, I think Volkswagen, there's other European holdups and reasons why they can't just bring stuff over, but it is another one of those questions of like, this is low hanging fruit, guys. Like you're also struggling in America here. Like, why are we not doing the easy stuff? I mean, I understand, sedans were kind of dropping off and they kind of joined, the jumping of the ship along with Ford and Chevy and Mazda as well. But, I think, I think they kept Passat off too soon. If they would have just kept the old Passat, I think they would have seen a rebound and a sweeping back up of sales. Sadly, it's just unfortunate that they didn't have that crystal ball. You can't blame them for it. They made the right choice in the right moment, I think. But I think it's just, if they could find a way, again, Magna Steyr or whatever you got to do, just put the old one back into production, put the new screen in it or whatever. But like, I think that could actually, because the old one was great. I mean, it, as you know very well, Vishal, drove great. It's, it had a lot of space. It was actually class leading space, I think, at the time. And even towards the end there, I think it's, went out on the top of the class. So as far as like rear seat legroom and trunk space and stuff, I mean, I reviewed Passats many times too. They're just great cars, so I mean, but yeah, I guess if for whatever reason they couldn't bring back the old Passat platform or the new one, stretching Jetta works too. Sure. Yeah. I think that could be, totally fine. Just something bigger. Cause I think, there's not a lot of competition. I mean, it's still a struggle. Like even Sonata only sold like 60,000 units last year. So I think that's also part of it, is they just see, the headwinds there and they just don't want to play, but, let me see. FC 1407, thank you so much for a very generous super chat there. I don't see a question attached, but I'll keep an eye out. If you do want to just do another comment after that or whatever, I'll definitely answer here as soon as that pops up. Okay, he says, yeah, sedans are great. Daughter has a 2013 Passat and I just bought a 26 Camry. Well, congrats on the new Camry, and great car there with the Passat for your daughter. That's awesome. And I am a big Volkswagen fan these days, but especially sedans. And I think sedans do have lasting appeal. It really does seem like the people who, enjoy sedans, they're not going to SUVs. Like they are sticking with their sedans and seeking them out, even if they got to go to a different brand to get it, they're sticking with them. And I think that's something that I think the industry kind of underestimated. I think they thought, oh, okay, well, we're seeing this drift into SUVs and eventually sedans are just going to go to zero or close to zero. And it's like, no, like, they didn't realize there was a floor here of like, yeah, it dropped, but now we're still sitting steady at, however, I mean, it's over 1 million sedans, I think overall is still sold if you count, full size, mid size, and, compact, and, not really any more subcompact left. But, like there's a lot of sedans still get sold for sure. And I see he says drove an SUV and did not like it. Yeah, I mean, it's an immediate downgrade as far as handling. It doesn't matter how good of a drive it is. I mean, even like, comparing Alfa Romeo Stelvio, one of the best handling SUVs in my opinion, to a Giulia. The Giulia is the better driver because it's the sedan and it's lower and it's just inherently, you have physics on your side there, So yeah, I'm right there with you. And thank you so much for the super chat. Let me see here. So we got another 12 minutes or so. So I'm going to try and get caught up here towards the end here. So Corvette says, well, my aunt who had a 2019 Honda CRV EXL, the engine blew on it like a month ago. Oh, another one. I'm sorry to hear that, Corvette. He says, so she just got a Mazda CX-50 hybrid as her new car. Well, hopefully that'll treat her better, but man, yeah, that's a shame. Mr. 705 says, I worked at a Honda plant in Allison or Alliston for 7 years. I had a group of friends that went to Ohio to work on the new electric vehicles for 3 years. It was all a waste. They all just came back. Wow. Yeah, I feel so bad for them because I can't imagine 3 years of your life, and even also they went to Ohio, which no offense to Ohio people, but if you're coming from Canada, it's probably a little bit of a culture shock to go to Ohio of all places in America. But yeah, but to spend 3 years and then nothing, like, I don't know. I mean, and someone mentioned this in the comments, and I guess it's possible that they said they're probably not throwing out all that development. It's probably going to get shoved into a warehouse and put on the back burner, and then if it is needed in the future and they deem it prudent investment, then they will maybe pull it out of the shadows and dust it off and say ta-da. But then it's going to be a 5-year-old thing. I mean, they can update stuff or whatever if they want, but like, yeah, I mean, there's so many problems. Like even the RSX was supposed to debut Acura's new operating system and is going to usher in this whole next generation infotainment stuff. Now, what's that going to be? Are they going to maybe put it in the refreshed MDX or something? I don't know, but it's just like there's so many things that get screwed up as a domino effect of this. But and also just the actual people. Like I said, that factory in Ohio that's supposed to be building these things in a matter of months, now they have no work. And that hurts, especially in Ohio in those manufacturing areas. It's not like you're, in Columbus or Cincinnati or something where there's maybe a bunch of other stuff. Like you're out in the middle of nowhere pretty much. And what do those people do for work? They were reliably employed by, I mean, there's other factories in Honda in Ohio, so I'm guessing maybe they'll try and relocate people, but then that's a giant pain in the butt to relocate people and have to move or do a long commute or whatever. It's just it's just a shame. Hopefully they'll find something to put in that factory pretty quickly, but it's just, it's a big deal. And a lot of people don't get that part of it. They want to dance on the EV grave or whatever, but it's like, this is actually affecting people's lives. And that's a prime example. So I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. 705. And Lantern Tail says Acura should look at Lexus seriously. They are doing it a lot better than Acura product wise. Honda has holes in their lineup compared to the Toyota. Acura has giant craters compared to Lexus. That's absolutely true. I mean, I think also, playing devil's advocate a little bit. I mean, Toyota, I think might have gone too far the other direction, especially when you look at the truck lineup, where it's like every conceivable niche and even niches you didn't know existed. Like Toyota's like, oh yeah, we'll do another one here with Land Cruiser, 4Runner, Crown Signia. I mean, just all these. I can't even keep them all straight. There's just so many of these things. It's just there's a lot really tightly packed in Sequoia. GX and everything else. It's a lot. So I think there's a happy medium there. I mean, again, it's working for Toyota right now, but I could see eventually, especially with this new CEO at Toyota, kind of cutting back and being like, okay, all this stuff was fun, but like, do we actually need 4 things that do essentially similar, if not identical things? I think we could see some trimming of the lineup with this new CEO because it's just, I mean, everyone can see. I mean, there's a lot of overlap. I mean, why is there Crown and Camry with Camry having a bigger backseat? It's just like, there's very, very limited appeal for Crown. I get it. It's a pride thing for them or whatever, but like Crown should not be here. A Crown Signia, I think, is a little bit more, justifiable, but Crown Sedan was a bad idea from the beginning for America. At least I like it in a vacuum. I had one for a week. It's very nice, but like, it doesn't make sense the way it's priced and the way it's packaged and stuff. So I think we'll see some of that. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think that there may be some of those cutbacks we see with some of that stuff is one of the first dominoes to fall if this new CEO actually plans to shake things up at all. And let me see. Mr. 705 says I could get over $2,000 off a new CRV with loyalty and a lower interest rate, and I'm still leaning towards the Toyota. Gotcha. April 1st was supposed to be day 1 of production of the new Acura. Oh, really? Wow, I didn't realize it was that soon. Because, I mean, Acura told us it was to be second half of 2026 for them to start showing up and, us to be getting in them and all that kind of stuff. And so if April 1st is the actual start of production demand, I mean, that's like, so then behind the scenes, thinking about some of this stuff, like if it was that soon, then that means that like the Honda PR team or the Acura PR team had already been working on a media drive. So like the PR side also then just got thrown into a giant headache of like they got to back out of giant hotel bookings probably, and all these they go on these scouting trips to get ready for these where they want to have these launch events at and stuff. That was all probably underway. I mean, so yeah, I didn't realize they were that actually close. So that's wow. Yeah, that's so many, again, just the giant cluster that happened after that announcement. Yeah, I'm sure morale is at a rock bottom at Honda and Acura right now, especially Acura. Jeez, that's crazy. Thanks for the extra little insight there, Mr. 705. And Junior says, hey, brother, what's the best car for enthusiasts under 10 grand? I mean, I would say old VTEC Civic SIs if you want something a little bit practical. Otherwise, I'd say Miata is often the answer. I think another really good value is Pontiac Solstice and Saturn Sky. Great little roadsters that you can get all day long with like reasonably kept versions of reasonable miles under 10 grand all day long for nice ones. And I reviewed a bunch of these in the past couple of years. Really enjoyed all of them. Really good values, and I think they don't get the love and the attention they deserve. Now, I've heard a few owners who have said it's a little hard to sometimes get some of the parts for Solstice and Sky, so keep that in mind. But I think that's probably in my opinion, one of the favorite choices under 10 grand. It's a lot of car. They look cool. It's something different. So it's not another Miata like everybody else, but there's nothing wrong with that. They're popular for a reason. And I think that's another top pick for sure. And maybe potentially a little more reliable, as well. But those are probably my top few picks there. I think also, I don't know exactly what Mustangs are available under 10 grand now, but I think even a V6 Mustang is a fun little enthusiast car. Again, if you want something a little more comfortable, that's not as small as a little sports car. I think Mustangs are always great. I'm not sure if the fifth gen Camaros have gotten that cheap yet. That could be another good one though, potentially, if it is. Yeah, hopefully that's a few good recommendations. There's probably some others, but that's probably the best ones off the top of my head. Let me see. DB says, what would you recommend as best family truck? Wife already has a van. Depends what size you're looking at. If you're looking at full size, Ram is my favorite because it has the smoothest ride. So that would be my pick in the full size segment. As far as just family friendliness goes, and also I think has the biggest back seat too, which is a perk, obviously. I mean, all the trucks do a really good job. I think my ranking personally, Ram, and then F-150, and then the GM stuff. Tundra is also great. It's just, I think Tacoma is just a little pricey, but if you can get a really good deal on a Tacoma or on a Tundra, I'd probably slot Tundra neck and neck with the F-150. The Tundra just also has a ton of power, which is great if you're into that, but just doesn't get as good a fuel efficiency, I don't think, as the F-150 with its smaller engines. But otherwise, Tundra's right up there, but I think Ram is still, to me, the best. But I mean, I know someone who has a Tundra and also Sequoia. They do a ton of towing. They really love them. They've had a few of them now for this new generation because they go through them pretty quick because they rack up miles fast. So they really like them. That motor is a gem in the Toyotas, especially. Now, if you're talking mid-size stuff, if you don't need body on frame, the Ridgeline is the biggest backseat, and I love the Ridgeline. It's the smoothest ride. Feels like an SUV, but it has the truck bed practicality and even the under bed storage. It is a little more practical and livable. We have the swing out tailgate in addition to the drop down components. So I really love Ridgeline. One of my good friends has a Ridgeline. He's had it for many years now. Loves it. It's treated him well, and he's very happy with it. So that's now if you need body on frame mid-size, I think Frontier is one of the best values, but it's also one of the worst crash tested ones. So if you care about that, I wouldn't recommend Frontier for family for safety reasons. And then otherwise, so if you're going to go for, mid-size body on frame, my top picks are going to be Tacoma or Ranger are my two favorites there. Tacoma is probably going to be harder one to get a deal on, but it also depreciates less. But if you're looking to just, save some money up front, I think Ranger is really, really well done, actually. And a little underappreciated as well, in my opinion. But Ranger, just the problem with Ranger is it gets close to F-150 pricing. So you need a good discount on Ranger to give you a significant gap between that and F-150. If there's a good gap there, great. But otherwise, spend a couple grand more and just get the bigger F-150. So that's my kind of download on the state of the truck market right now. Hopefully it helps you a little bit there. And Aaron says the Cadillac ELR was an interesting attempt at a Volt coupe. I agree. ELR is so cool. I want to review one someday. Someone actually offered me one locally. I just never had the time to get around to it, but I need to see if they still have it, because I think that could be a really fun kind of standout review. Even if it doesn't get a lot of views, it's just something different, which I think could make it a little more appealing than, the sea of press cars everyone's used to seeing, the nonstop parade of, among us reviewers here. All right, so we have hit the 2-hour mark here, but we'll try and finish up here as quick as we can here. I see there's a little discussion about, oh, thanks, Danny, for chiming in here about the hybrids with the GM stuff. So you guys can go ahead and read all that if you want. I'm familiar with the system, so I won't repeat all the info there. But yeah, and also the Saturn Vue green line. I didn't know about the green line, actually. I maybe have a foggy memory of that being a thing, but I didn't know about that one. So thanks. He says that's a 2.4 4-cylinder with a 14.5 kilowatt hour electric motor, or kilowatt electric motor. Gotcha. The BAS system. It was paired to a 4-speed automatic. And the second gen even got that. Interesting. That's cool. Thanks for sharing all that great info, Danny. Definitely anyone else who wants to read up about that, definitely check out his comments there on that. And Vishal says, I hope Honda is hard at work on the hybrids. Toyota and Lexus are obliterating them in hybrid offerings and sales. Crazy how Honda didn't look at their main competitor and go, we should do that. Yeah, it is crazy for sure. We'll see. I mean, I know Honda's, working on a hybrid V6 for the Pilot. And they're, doing, I mean, they still have all the other hybrid stuff. So, I mean, they do have a lot of hybrids for sure, but yeah, just crazy. They're not doing more quickly. Yeah, Darnell says, yeah, part of Honda's magic is the suspension tuning. Totally agree. DV Rand says, kids now don't even share the same passion anymore for cars like our generation. Yeah, yes and no. I think I have been seeing, though, like, there's a lot of Gen Z people that are really into manuals and like that engagement. And I actually, I can't remember where I read an article that was saying how there's a lot of Gen Zers actually going back to physical media, in particular VHS, and really enjoying, it's like anything, all the fashion trends come back around now. We're seeing baggy jeans again. And I remember, in high school and middle school, and that was all the rage. And now I'm like, it's kind of weird to be like, oh, wow, like this is a thing again. I feel old, but I think a lot of these things, and I think we're seeing this also where, Gen Zers, a lot of them are burned out on tech because they grew up being inundated with it. And so, they want to go backwards and, go to a simpler time. They're already seeing the appeal of that. And so I think that, we are seeing, and actually Haggerty did a study on this. They're seeing a bunch of registrations for even classic 90s manual stuff among Gen Zers who are getting Haggerty insurance for these things. So there is some. Now, is it as much as there was before? Probably not. I know, the often cited thing is, all these kids are just Ubering around. They're not even bothering to get licenses anymore because they don't care. And there's certainly some truth to that too. So I just don't know. It's hard to tell what the actual majority is and what is being overblown by the media and what isn't, as far as that goes, because all these things, oh, no one wants to drive anymore. Like that gets clicks. Now on the enthusiast side saying, hey, like Gen Z loves manuals, that also gets clicks. So like, it's hard to say. I don't have a good sense of, what the actual data shows as far as big picture of where these things, fit in. But there are people that do. And I also even saw, recently, or I think it was last year, I think it was CarMax did a report how there are a lot of parents that the Gen Z's people want manuals, and the parents are super supportive because they assume if you are having a manual transmission, if your kid's driving a manual, they are using two hands. They don't have a hand for their phone, and so there's parents that are like, "Oh, you want a manual? Here's the money. Like, go buy a manual," because they know their kids are actually going to be paying attention to the driving experience and really, focusing, because when you're driving a manual, like, you really got to focus on, okay, am I in the right gear? Am I going to stall out? You have to actually focus on the drive. And so, like, and I can say that as a parent, like, if my daughter was like super into manuals, I'd be like, absolutely, like, let's get you a manual. Also, I love them, but like, because she's going to be paying attention more. She has to, if you're going to properly drive it. So, like, I think there is some of that. Again, how much I don't know, but I don't think it's completely lost just yet. We'll see what happens. And let me see. Lancewell says, I was just thinking about what the coolest car I've ever seen in person was. A red Vector W2. Wow. It was a very, very long time ago. That's awesome. I've never seen one of those. That's really sweet. Those are really rare. I can't remember how many of those did they even make. I think it's like under 50. I mean, that's a very rare spot. So kudos to you, Lancewell, for spotting that a long time ago. And Nico says, my favorite Japanese cars are the R35 GTR and the LFA, but I'm American muscle for life. Yeah, well, those are two of the high marks for the Japanese for sure. And DV Rand says, I see EV cars going the same way of smartphones, subscriptions for cars and recycled cars like iPhones. I think cars like M2s, Type Rs will be a rare commodity, like in Demolition Man in the future. Yeah, I think that's kind of the way, yeah, even if not for the electric component, just the high-tech component, even if all these things, even the gas stuff, if it's high-tech, you got a giant screen that controls everything, you're at the mercy of when that screen goes, can you find a replacement? Which I think, there will be aftermarket ones and stuff, so it's not all lost, but I think, there's certainly some of that. The only thing I'll say is, like, a lot of people don't give EVs enough credit for how long the batteries do last. A lot of people think, oh, it's just, the battery just goes to crap in a few years. And, it's kind of like a smartphone in that regard, which isn't really true. I mean, there's batteries that, like, I think there was a Hyundai Ioniq 5 a guy just turned in Korea that had like 300 and some thousand miles on it. And he gave it back to Hyundai for them to like do analysis and testing on. But he was still in the original battery, I believe, and the thing was still running great. I mean, you see that there's a lot of Teslas too. I mean, again, I don't love Tesla, but like, there's a lot of them out there with very high miles on the original batteries. Some of them have had replacements. Certainly, there are battery replacements, just like how there's motor replacements for cars. But like, there's a lot of batteries that last a long time, and especially if you're smart about it and you don't charge to 100% every day, and you're not thrashing the battery with constant fast charging and stuff, they can last a very long time. This is also part of why, like, Toyota, again, with their mind on reliability, their EVs charge a little slower. They're more conservative in the wintertime and really cut range more drastically than other EVs as a result. It's because they want this battery to last a long time, and they know here's the ways that we know how to do that, and that's how they're going about it. So I think that they're, it's not super disposable, but I think that until there's a better familiarity built up with what people can expect from old EVs, it's going to be a fast appreciation curve for sure. And this is why I've always said, do not actually purchase an EV, lease them, because you don't know, if the rug's going to get pulled out from under you with depreciation, and they always do depreciate really fast. We always leased ours. It's the only way to protect yourself from the depreciation. So that would be my recommendation for anyone that does want to enjoy that without getting raked over the coals financially. Let me see here. Nico says, whatever happened to that Chevy truck where the back wheels would turn too? That Silverado EV, it still does it, still out there. Hasn't changed, I don't think. Lantern, going back to the conversation a while back about the European cars, he says classic case is the 2005 Mercedes S-Class, run away as fast as possible. Yeah, any of that stuff. That's why they all depreciate so fast. They're just so overly complicated. And confirmation, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, "Hi Matt, thanks for the extra time. I just got here. Well, happy to have you here." And he says, "I always look forward to this." Well, thanks so much. And definitely, if you want to go back and watch the other 2 hours, when you got some time, these always are available afterwards too. But he says, anyway, my question is, will the CT5V Blackwing be the last manual V8 sedan? Probably. I mean, I think it is the only one, right? I don't think there's anything else. Because everything else, is like coupes, like the Mustang, but I don't think there's any other manual V8 sedans, right? Am I forgetting something? I don't think I am. Yeah, that's the only one. Confirmation. Thanks. So yeah, I think it will be the last. I don't foresee anyone coming back. There's still the persistent rumors about a four-door Mustang sedan V8 powered. I think Jim Farley just again alluded to this in a weird interview last week, but which I think now they're saying, what are they? Oh, yeah. So I don't know if you guys caught wind about this, but the rumor is that Ford Falcon could be the name that they use for the Mustang sedan, which I think is great. Instead of, because the initial rumor was they're going to call it the Mustang 4, which is like, oh man, like, can you please give us anything more exciting for a name? Like, ask the janitor like what the name should be, and you'll get a better response than whatever the Mustang PR division is putting out as far as names go. But like it's just crazy. Yeah, that they're terrible with that. But anyway, it sounds like Ford Falcon might be what they do with that, which I think would be awesome. But yeah, as far as that being the last, I truly think it probably will be, unless that Mustang comes out and actually becomes a thing. But between those two, that's got to be it. I mean, there's also rumors that maybe GM could do some kind of other thing on the Alpha platform and bring back Camaro as a sedan, but that most likely would be EV, I would think. So I don't know. We'll see. I think, yeah, especially as far as sedans goes, obviously there's going to be more coupes. I think, there's a rumor that, the C9 Corvette could maybe get a manual, or they could even do it here at the end of C8. So there's other things, but I think that, yeah, as far as sedans goes, that's probably going to be it. Yeah. Thank you so much for the super chat confirmation. And let me see here. Where were we? So Felix says, I am tempted by your comment last week about the Equinox EV with the incentives. They expire in 2 weeks, a 3-year lease. I'd keep my ICE car in addition. Do I need to work fast? Should I buy? Oh, as far as, I don't think there's any kind of time crunch on that. It's just that, the only time crunch I will say, and this is a complete shot in the dark. So, I mean, it's hard to say, but based on early reports, it sounds like EVs are getting hotter quickly in the past couple of weeks. Now, it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think you're going to see widespread, sprinting to go buy an EV from people until gas gets more expensive and it becomes more obvious to more people that this isn't going to be resolved overnight. Because well, again, I won't get into all that, but I don't think this is going away anytime soon. So it's going to take some time, but I think that you could see the tables turn real quick on EVs and they become hot commodities again sooner rather than later, whether that's in 2 weeks or that's in 2 months or that's in 9 months. I don't know. Again, it depends on how bad it gets, but with the Strait of Hormuz is a different thing, but like the refineries that are being blown to smithereens, the depots, the oil depots, like actual infrastructure and facilities, production facilities are actually being destroyed. And Iran's trying to, just the other day, we're trying to take out more in Saudi Arabia, which they shoot them down before they actually hit. But like, if one of them manages to get through or something, I mean, like this could get, even worse. So like, yeah. I just don't know. I don't know how fast it's, but I'm sure, that dealers are even going to try and take advantage of this preemptively, even if there's a whisper of a, changing of the tides here as far as people wanting EVs all of a sudden again. You'll see dealers get a little less generous with discounts and stuff. So I would say that sooner rather than later is better, but don't rush into anything. Um, and as far as, yeah, you can do a lease on them. I think GM typically prefers to do 2-year leases. That's what our Lyric is. So you might get the best deal from a money factor standpoint there with a 2-year lease. But yeah, I think you can still do 3-year. They'll let you do that. That's not a problem. It's just you'll probably pay a little bit more for that. But yeah, I think Equinox EV is a phenomenal bargain if you can get one of these ones. Even if you, that's one of the few exceptions. If you do purchase it instead of lease it, you'll probably get burned less because, like, if you're, I mean, some of these they're advertising them under 20 grand. I mean, obviously these discounts are going to hurt resale even more, but it's hard to imagine an Equinox EV getting cheaper than 15 grand, in 3 years' time. They'll probably get close. I know I've actually started to see Ioniq 5s, some of the higher mileage, first model year ones. They've actually dipped into like the 16 grand range used, but I mean, we're talking 80, 90, 100,000 miles. But like they've dropped fast from a 40, $50,000 car that's now 15, 16 grand. But I just, because you'll be paying down a loan, like I don't think you're getting super burned if you purchase an Equinox EV at 19 or 20 grand. I that's one of the few where you probably aren't going to lose your hat on it. But otherwise, though, I think you're gonna probably want to lease. So it just comes down to what your discounts are. But yeah, Equinox EVs are great, and if you can get a good deal, I think it's well worth it. Just know, you have no CarPlay, my big gripe. But other than that, it's really great. One of my neighbors just picked one up, and I was just joking with him because he's been sending me some updates on the the whole oil situation and stuff too that he sees. And I was like, man, like, because they still have a gas car in their garage, which I think is, especially if it's your first EV, I think that's a good thing to do. I think it's good to have a gas car so that, you don't have to worry about range anxiety and you still have an option. And, until you kind of get used to that limitation or working around that or whatever, you always have that gas car to, give you peace of mind, which is important. But like I was joking with my neighbor, I was like, I mean, because the dealer has like 3 of the same thing. I got all black Equinox RS. I'm like, you might want to pick up another one for the wife, to replace her car with. He's like, yeah, it's not a bad idea, but I think we're good because, they don't really use the other car a whole lot anyway, so it's not a big deal if they gotta, pay a little bit for gas every once in a while. But yeah, like, he's even thinking like maybe I should have picked up 2 instead of 1 because it's like they're cheap and again it's gonna save him a bunch of money. But anyway, let me see. Chadwick says, favorite guy from that auction site loves Whistling Diesel and his car destruction. Yeah. Yeah. Some of those guys, I mean, hey, they're laughing all the way to the bank. Good for them. But yeah, not my style for sure with that kind of content and the way those guys go about it. But anyway, see, everyone was enjoying the drinks for the GR Corolla way back when. Let me see. Luke says there's more chill drivers in North Dakota, Montana, Wisconsin, and New Hampshire. Nice. And Felix says he's tried to send a super chat, but it says error. Sorry to hear that, Felix. I'm not sure, what the holdup would be. I don't know of any current errors with super chatting, but leave it to YouTube. There's you never know what you'll uncover with errors. But sorry about that, Felix. And there is always, if you want to support, again, there's memberships is always available. And then there's also, the super thanks on regular videos, another way to do the same kind of thing as a super chat, But let me see here. So Vishal says, me groaning with the Volkswagen community as far as the Mark R, the Golf R comment there. He says, just kidding, everyone has their preferences. Yeah, and that's the great thing about cars. And a thing that I think the rest of the world could learn from car culture, which I think it is also kind of fading a little bit in car culture, sadly, but like just the idea that people like different things and that's okay, I think cars are a great example of that. If we all drove the same thing, it'd be a very boring world. And, even though you might see something with some crazy mods driving by and we might all be like, oh, that's weird. Instead of getting angry about it, we're all just like, oh, that's weird. And then we live and let live and we move on with our lives instead of, doing an angry tweet about it or whatever the case is, with everything else these days, where it's like, oh, that person's different than me, I need to be mad now. And it's like, we can just be like, huh, well, that's the way they've decided to do things, good for them. And move on. At least that's the way I approach questionable mods and stuff. It's like, you can pay me to put that on my car, but like, I'm glad that they're driving by with a smile and they're enjoying it. That's what it's all about. And Nublin says, ever considered a 200-mile-per-hour superbike? Nope. Never did. I'm far too risk averse for anything remotely close to that, even motorcycles in general. So no motorcycle stuff coming from me, even though I've heard it's a phenomenal experience. And kudos to those of you who, I know, like Raphael is a big motorcyclist there, and others, but just not for me. And Rand, thanks so much. I'm glad you love the content. And Rishi says, I won't get over the fact that Lexus has basically abandoned enthusiast vehicles. I know Ghazi Racing exists, but still GR is not Lexus. Yeah, it's a shame there's no full-blown F models. I think the LFA is going to be cool if you're into EVs. I think there hopefully will be more to come. We'll see what happens. I don't think that's the end of the story with the Fs from Lexus, but yeah, it's been a little bit of a drought, with performance from them. So I hope we get more in the future. And Michelle says, we've had nearly 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts all day here in DFW. No power outages, luckily. Well, that's good. I hope it stays that way. Abek's asking, Highlander EV or Hyundai Santa Fe hybrid? Totally different vehicles there. And I haven't driven Highlander EV, so hard to say. I don't know pricing or anything like that. I don't think even Toyota knows pricing yet. So it's a ways to go for that one. Danny says, yeah, the Xboxes have been selling for $3,000 to $5,000 unopened on eBay. Basically cheap first car money. Yeah, right? That's impressive. That's cool. Sam says, you look like the kid from Hamnet. I don't know what that is, but I'll have to look it up. Typically, I know one of the doppelgangers I've got in the past, a lot of people said I look like a male version of Kate McKinnon. And then what was the other one that people have said in the past? I don't remember, but anyway, that's the one that in the past it's been a while, but that for a while there was like once a month someone had to like make that comment. But anyway, I guess now she's not in SNL as much, so it's not as much in the forefront. But anyway, let me see. So Bob says, do you still prefer manuals over automatics personally? Yes, absolutely. Manuals, just so much more fun. I love that engagement. Every time I have a manual press car, it's like a breath of fresh air. Like, man, like this is just the best. I still love it. Yeah. Mr. 705 says, see you Wednesday. Yeah, I'll see you on Wednesday for the next one. Last few comments here. Vishal says, I think the 2000s in general was not a good era for all German brands. So many electrical issues, mechanical issues in that time. Yeah, that's very true. I think that was kind of an era when they were trying to kind of find themselves and figure out, kind of their footing and their identities and stuff. But a lot of people really love a lot of the stuff too. It's just a little bit quirky. But I think, we're looking at it through the lens of 2026 when, stuff from the early 2000s, it's kind of in its peak rock bottom unpopularity kind of, phase. And, give the next generation enough time, and those be the ones that they grew up in as kids and, will feel sentimental about. And like all these things, comes full circle. Someday there'll be people that'll be saying, oh, yeah, they're so quirky and so unreliable, but man, I love that blob eye of the 2004 S-Class or whatever the case is. I'm sure there's going to be some of that. Same way, I mean, again, people hated 996 911s, and I think a lot of people still do. But like there's now a growing appreciation, and people have been like, oh, well, it's still 911. And it's, now I remember these things as a kid, and, they're able to get into them because they're not insanely expensive. And, you're seeing this growing appreciation even for like the most unloved Porsche 911 ever made. So I think there's, again, anything you give it enough time. I mean, there's people that, enjoy Yugos, even though, you couldn't give those things away back in the day. So it's, everything has its appeal to certain people and certain generations. And let me see. Lance Moss says the GMC version of the GMT 800 had an optional rear wheel steer. I think it was in 2004 or 06. Legit Street Cars had one. Oh, I remember actually. I don't know their content, but I remember that actually being a thing. You're right. GM did have that. I think also they offered it for Chevy too, if I recall. Yeah, that was a thing. One of those fun things where GM, they always try these things, far too early, and then give it a couple of decades and it's more common. And confirmation says Charger Hellcat returns in four-door and brings back the Challenger manual gearbox. I don't know. I think we'll have to see how things play out. I mean, I guess it'd probably be easier to pair it to a motor that has previously had the manual than to try and do it to a new motor with the Hurricanes. Because I would say, maybe we'll see it first in the Hurricanes if they ever do it. But you're right. Maybe it would end up being it'll make more sense to just do it with the existing engine and transmission, because they can always buy that Tremec and, just keep churning that out, I'm sure. So, yeah, maybe we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a while, though. I think, they keep saying, we're just getting started with Charger and all this, and there's a lot more to go. But I think I just heard a rumor. I can't remember if it was like Mopar Insiders or someone was reporting that they're saying that the V8 Charger isn't happening until the refresh of this generation Charger, which I think is 2028. Which, I mean, not like Stellantis has great judgment these days, but like, if they are waiting, I mean, again, maybe they just can't do it any faster, and it's, maybe not their fault. But like, if 2028 is when we'll finally see a Charger, V8, they have a maybe 2-year window. I mean, it might take longer to undo or to, reenact all the undoing of emission stuff that's happened here in the past year. But, if things swing the other way, which seems like a safe bet in my opinion, I think that they're not going to have a lot of time to sell that car before they're either going to have to pay massive fines to keep it around, or it's just going to be something that's, a last call, limited kind of thing for it, which will then make them all 150 grand and, ridiculous. But I don't know. It just doesn't give them a lot of time to work with, I don't think, personally. So we'll see what happens. But let me see. Vishal says, I recall Jim Farley saying you'd have to pry the manual out of my cold, dead hands or something like that for the Mustang. Yes, he did say that. He also said that a couple of years ago and then just re-said that again like last week. And that was making the headlines once again. So it seems like something he really enjoys saying. But yeah. Interesting guy, it seems. Never met him, but seems interesting. But yeah, that's what he's said. So I'm very happy to hear that. Obviously, I love manuals. I'm happy to see it in the Mustang, and it's just kind of also, again, just a weird thing to say considering he's like, oh, manual, but then it's like only available. He got rid of it in the EcoBoost. It's only in the GT and the Dark Horse. You can't get it in the Dark Horse SC. You can't get it in the GTD. So like, yes, you're doing more than most. So, I'll give you a little golf clap here, but like, it's not like, oh, beat my chest, manual and everything. Like, like you have a very limited amount of manuals you're offering. Glad you're offering them, but like, he's acting like every single thing that they make has a manual or something. At least the way he's, vocalizing it so, assertively there. But anyway, yeah, just another day, another Jim Farley quote that like, oh, okay. But anyway, yeah, Vishal says, yeah, the Quadra steer. That's it, Vishal. That was the name. Yeah, and it's also in Suburbans. Interesting. And Brandon says, is Alpine coming to America? I think it's a sport coupe. Alpine, they had planned on it. I think with tariffs, they were like, eh. And so I think since then, I think they still said that they were interested in it. I think the last thing I remember hearing about Alpine was they were initially saying 2028, but now they're like, maybe we'll do 2029, which for any car company looking for stability and regulations, again, a possible administration change is, probably going to be the safer bet for if you're going to launch a brand and you want to make sure you don't have the rug pulled out from underneath of you at a moment's notice overnight for no reason at all. It's probably best to wait till 2029 to launch anything like that. that's, not from within America. So I think that probably what you can expect. They did say though that whenever they do come, that they are planning on actually doing some of the sports cars. They initially were just going to launch with SUVs, but I think they've come to realize that that's not going to set them apart or make them a sexy brand if they just have performance SUVs. They need to have a halo. They need to have something that gets people in showrooms, gets people excited, gets the media buzzing, gets enthusiasts buzzing, and bringing an actual Alpine sports car to the States is the way to do that. So I think they're going to, it's going to be a money loser probably no matter what. But like, that's, I think the plan now is sports car. The A110 is going to get a new generation. I think there's that, but there's also another one they're doing. I think it's the hatch Alpine or whatever. I don't know. I'm a little foggy on all my Alpine knowledge, but like they're going to do, you're going to do some legit stuff. It seems. I hope they actually do. And it happens. Again, a lot of unknowns between now and 2029 in a lot of ways in the world. So we'll see, but hopefully if things get back to being chill and stay chill, yes, I think 2029 is the hope for that. Yeah. And confirmation says, is there a business case for a Nissan Frontier based Infinity truck? Interesting. That thought has never crossed my mind. I think for Infinity, they would probably want something based on like Titan, like something larger, which obviously they can't do with Titan not being around anymore. This is interesting. An Infinity Frontier. I mean, I think if they added some extra sophistication to it, just like, I just don't know if like an Infinity that rides like a Frontier might be a hard sell. Also, when you're talking mid-sized trucks, it's really tough because like this is something, Mercedes in Europe, they have a Mercedes truck. I think it's based on the Volts. Or no, I think the Mercedes one is based on the Ford Ranger, if I recall correctly. And then there's also Volkswagen that has one. Maybe it's the Volkswagen that's partnered up with Mercedes. Someone badge engineers. There's also a Mazda truck that I think that one's based on the Volkswagen. The Mazda, I think it's called the BT50 or something like that. So there's been like attempts because there's, mid-sized trucks are, really the only way to get a truck in Europe, and so they have some of those that they've tried. But I feel like the Mercedes one kind of crashed and burned. I don't think they even sell it anymore. So maybe that's a lesson. But again, that was Europe. It's not the same as America. So different rodeo. Maybe it would work here. You'd have to do a lot. And honestly, I feel like Infinity would almost be better off making like some kind of Ridgeline competitor instead and take, the QX60 and hack the back end off and do something like that. If you're going to go, for a luxury truck. But I don't know. I mean, people love Frontier. So, I mean, maybe there would be a case. It's an interesting idea. Thanks for bringing that up. It's fun to have the wheels turn and run the hypotheticals on all that stuff. And also he says one of a former Ford CEO, Alan Mullally's favorite cars to drive was an Australian Ford Falcon G6E on manufacturer plates. They were considering importing it to the US, but they didn't see a business case. It's interesting. I didn't know that. He says a case profitable enough considering they would have had to engineer a left-hand drive Falcon, but the Falcon was never engineered to be left-hand drive originally. They also already had the similarly sized Taurus at the same time. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. But, I think Falcon could have done well if Falcon would have, this whole thing, I feel like there's an alternate timeline somewhere where everyone made the right move on being a Charger competitor, because I think there absolutely could have been Falcon as a Charger competitor, because the thing with Taurus is, it's front-wheel drive based, it's all-wheel drive. If you had Falcon that was rear-wheel drive like Charger, so you had Falcon, Charger, and then you had a Chevy Chevelle, which was SS, Chevy SS, G8, Pontiac, but the G8 was cool, but like this Chevy SS just, did not have any kind of appeal, as far as styling and stuff like that. Like the name was terrible. I think if that would have been called Chevelle and they actually would have put more marketing power behind that and kept it fresh and tried to really compete more directly with Dodge, and Ford did the same with Falcon, we would have three awesome, more affordable sports sedans, all manual, all V8, all awesome rear-wheel drive based things. There's no reason it didn't have to just be Charger. Like I think Charger just they were the ones that nailed the right marketing and knew how to package it well. And I mean, they took a risk. Everyone whenever Charger first came out was so mad it was a four door. That was the big outrage of 20 years ago that a lot of people forget. Now the outrage is they went back to actually as yeah. Well, I don't know if it's like public consumption, but all I can say is it's funny how people are now still poo-pooing a Charger even though it's a two-door or available as a two-door. They were mad when it was a four-door, and now it's gone back to offering a two-door version, and people are like, well, I don't like the engine it's in or whatever. Or some people still just hate the styling, which I personally don't get, but everyone sees things differently, whatever. But like, it's kind of funny how that. But anyway, Charger took a risk, and I think the risk did pay off, obviously, and it was a huge moneymaker. I'm sure. Bob Lutz at GM especially really tried to, keep Pontiac around. I think Pontiac in general, that whole brand could have been a direct competitor to Dodge and had the G8 if, Chevy didn't want to, partake in the fight, then let it be a Pontiac thing. And Pontiac could have had all kinds of awesome stuff just like Dodge, do it, keep the GTO going, keep the G8 going. It could have just been so much awesome. And they just, they had to just cut it. It's a shame. I really wish in an alternate reality they cut Buick instead. It's just that Buick was huge in China, and that's the reason why Buick stuck around. Otherwise, they would have been, gotten the axe too. But like in an alternate reality, Pontiac would have stuck around. They would have cut Buick and then had some awesome competitors there to the Charger instead of having Dodge just walk away with all the wins by default. But thanks for sharing that insight, though. That's fascinating. And Michelle says, I think an Infinity version of an Xterra is more likely. Oh, that'll definitely be a thing, I think. I mean, I don't think they've confirmed it or anything, but like, yeah, we're seeing, Genesis has the concept for the off-roader. This is going to be a trend I think they're foreseeing for the 2030s. And, you can always kind of tell by the concepts, and especially when multiple companies are coming to the same kind of concepts, I think that's when you can expect, because even there was like the Cadillac concept that was the off-roady kind of thing, which was a really far-fetched concept, but I think everyone's kind of like, yeah, like we're gonna see, especially with again more extreme weather and stuff, more and more luxury buyers saying, I want rugged, I want capable, but I also still want luxury. And I think that's the next frontier and the next fad we're going to see kind of take off. So I think Infinity would be very wise to get ahead of that, or maybe time it just right so that they pick up with as that's taking off. And I'm hoping that what I'm saying is I hope right now they're working on an Infinity version of Xterra, not have Xterra come out, wait and see how it does, wait and see what the rest of the market does, and then be like, oh wow, we should do a Infinity version 3 years later or whatever. Like it should launch a year after the Xterra at most. So we'll see. Who knows? But I think their leadership at Nissan seems really good right now for the most part. So I'm hoping that these kind of low-hanging fruit, again, get capitalized on well, because I think they got to maximize these platforms, maximize the dollars that they're investing, and hopefully that'll be the way to do it. Okay, confirmation. Thanks for filling me in there on the trucks. And Mercedes X-Class, okay, yeah, is based on the Nissan. That's right. Yeah, on the Navara. Okay, and then Mazda is based on the Ranger. Gotcha, and that makes sense considering the historical tie-up with Mazda and Ford. Okay, thank you for the clarification there. And Brian says, I saw 2 Dodge Challengers and a blue Corvette C8. Very nice. And confirmation says Pontiac G8 sedan, wagon, and Ute. Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, with the Australian, they could have done a Ute too. That makes it even better. So, yeah, you're right. And Falcon also had that kind of thing too. But yeah, versus Charger, Magnum, and Challenger would have been a car enthusiast wet dream. Auto industry competition would have fed families. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I always forget about Magnum, which again, there's some things where I don't want to repeat stuff that I'm like, but yeah, I don't know anything like in particular, but like all I can say is like even we were at the dinner with Dodge for Charger, like we were bringing up Magnum too, and being like these same kinds of things. All of us journalists, it's the same thing of we all want a brown manual wagon, often with a diesel. Like the journalists, like perfect car. But we always bring up, especially whenever it's a company like Dodge that had stuff like Magnum in the past, we're like just throw I it's actually when we were sitting next to the Dodge. I was sitting next to the Dodge CEO at dinner, 2 weeks ago, and I was like, take Charger 4-door. You already have a lift back, like just, give it the boxy shape, make it, modern Magnum. I'm like, I think it would do better these days than it did. I told him, I'm like, we see how M5 wagon's taking off, and I'm telling him all things he already knows. I'm sure he's rolling his eyes the whole time, but like, M5 wagon, is doing very well. Wagons are starting to have this extra appeal. I'm like, you guys have it in the history. You know how to do this. You got a good basis now. Maximizing that investment once again. So again, I'm sure that's the 15th time he'd heard that week, but like, just I had to get my little plug in there. So any Magnum fans, I went to bat for you, sitting right next to the Dodge CEO. So we'll see what happens there, but. But I think that car companies, they are considering these kinds of things as well. It's just, again, like it always goes back to, is there a business case for it? I don't know. I don't know if Dodge can make that business case or not. That's the tough thing. We're all enthusiasts. Like the Dodge CEO, he's got his whole wish list of things he'd love to, but it's like he's running a business. Can that business actually stay in business doing all your wish list stuff? Probably not. So that's why you gotta make those tough decisions and put your own wants and even the enthusiast wants and wishes on the back burner until you're in a healthy spot, you're doing good, and then you can afford to play around like Toyota is, for example, and do stuff that's maybe not making money and being okay with that, but Magnum, I think, actually has I don't know if it's a great shot, but I think there is a potential you could maybe have a business case for that. But anyway, all right, and Infiniti Xterra versus Lexus GX. Yeah, I think GX is really good though, so it just depends on how far they go with Xterra and how good they make it. So the jury's still out on that one. But anyway, this may be one of the longest live streams ever. I'm not mad about it, but we're at 2 hours and 40 minutes here. So we'll sign off here for the night. And I see we've had a few people that have already tapped out, I think, here, because we were a little bit lower than we were when we started here. But yeah, Michelle says, yeah, longest one on record probably. So anyway, take care, everyone. Yeah, I appreciate that, Michelle. I hope all of you have a happy, healthy, safe week here and a good one. And I'll see you on Wednesday for the 1 hour quick stream there. And stay tuned for some more good stuff here. And also a happy early birthday once again to Danny here this week. But thank you all so much for watching this one, and see you on the next one. Take care.